Max Verstappen back into first place. They want to make that move, but here goes Gustavo Ariel diving to the inside. Gael Valero looking for the move over Archie Neumann. He has it.
And you can just see Beto Silva pushing Florian Labigra right over.
Oh, Chris Lallum, he does make that pass.
Gael Valero doing his best on the outside, gets sideways, and no, the teammates crash. We had the number 11 going right there. 3 wide out there in the middle of the field, through the mountain straight now, going 3 wide.
Oh my word, that is probably one of the best shots of the entire season.
Towards the Mickey Lauda curve, bumping and banging and into the wall. That is a horrible crash.
2 wide now, door to door. Max Verstappen of Andre Dantes. Max Verstappen able to safely rejoin. Slots it right in front of another car.
Carousel immediately, he gets punted off. That was Saavedra. Aguilar, he's gone off, he's been tapped, and he's into the barriers. Oh, the rejoin, oh no!
Dean, oh Pedro, Dean.
Oh, Chris Lallum does have the inside track for the Swiss left. If he's able to make that pass happen, he might be able to cut away Victorino. He does make that pass, and he makes it clean as they come into the right hand, and this is it. Chris Lallum seizes the opportunity and makes it. And just as the end, the rain comes to put a pin onto the end of the race, and Chris Lallum takes it.
Miranda Pederzuba into the wall.
It's actually Valero. Valero's actually gone up into the barriers, coming up to the cutting.
David Todd making his way back up, has already climbed 7 positions.
Oh, I spoke too soon there. Sandy goes up.
So right now, this is going to be where it's going to get shaken up. David Todd passes them while they are in the pit through the mountain straight now, going 3 wide.
Oh my word, that is probably one of the best shows of the entire season.
So we have 3-way battle going to the most dangerous turn of the mountain. Up the mountain, we have contact right there. These guys going absolutely crazy. It's going to come down to the final corner, Murray's corner. Who is going to have to lead? We may have a drag race to the finish line on our hands, folks. You see David Todd right now going into the pit lane.
Permission to engage with impaired conductor smash, over.
Drivers' bags are packed and we're back out in the United Kingdom today. Coming from you out by Derby. That's right, folks, Donington Park, where we're out in the GT3 class today for our inaugural Season 6 AMX15 race. AMX15, of course, being all new this season. Definitely going to be shaking things up as now we're introducing our mini enduro races. We had a lot of drivers last season with AMX20, and now we're bringing it back with a slightly different class, throwing a bit of a twist on it. But from AMX, I am Kevin. Joined alongside me today, we have Damon. Damon, it's going to be a good one today.
Yeah, definitely. AMX15, of course, being slightly a little bit of the AMX20 we had last season. Different format, of course. Definitely going to be excited to see how the drivers tackle whatever we decide to throw at them later on. But yeah, definitely looking forward to it.
Absolutely. And for everyone out there watching at home, as always, make sure to follow all of our social medias up on screen. We post highlights, replays, news, the best of the best, and some of the worst of the worst. We got some crash highlights I was watching earlier that, oh man, I've been a few of those myself. But like we said, today we're switching it up for AMX 15, the inaugural race of the season. But before we get into qualifying, we have a few things to go over, not only just for this race, but for this season as well. So like we said, Season 6, I can't believe that we're already here, man. The time is flying by. We always been switching it up. But for this season, we started back on September 7th, and we're going all the way through November 17th with this season's prize pool of $11,000 plus next level racing gear. The AMX15 race format goes as follows, and this is where things switch up just a little bit. We got our normal 20-minute qualifier followed by that top 15 reverse grid. But heat number 1, we're going to have a 90-minute heat. That's right, folks, an hour and a half going into heat number 1, and then followed by a top 15 reverse grid going into heat number 2 of 30 minutes. So we have a bit more of an endurance race first, followed by a sprint. That first heat, though, drivers do have to take a couple mandatory pit stops, so that should make things interesting. For all of our drivers out there, driver cams are required. You can get the link via our AMX Discord or on the website. Payouts are done in balances over $100, paid out every single month. So once you hit $100, you're going to expect that money to head your way. We're here every single Saturday and Sunday this season. And like I said, if you want to get signed up to race anytime, head on over to amxrace.com. Our schedule is as follows. So every single Saturday, we're going to be here out AMX 0 and AMX 5 starting at 5:50 p.m. GMT, followed by the second race at 7:10 p.m. And we're switching it up every other Sunday this season. We're bringing in AMX10 starting at 5:50 p.m. and the doubleheader at 7:30. And on the opposite weekends like today, we are out here with AMX15 starting at 5:50 p.m. For the AMX 15 races, this is what we can expect for the prizes. So qualifying, we get $30 for first place, second place gets 20, third gets 18, going all the way down into 15th place. Then once we hit that heat number 1, this is where the points go up. Triple the points for heat number 1, $90 for first, $60 for second, $54 for third, all the way down into 15th place with the fastest lap getting an extra $15. And once we head it back into heat number 2, those go down to 30, 20, 18, all the way down to 15th place until, again, the fastest lap, getting an extra $5 for that. So for our AMX 15, we've got a total prize pool of $750. And keep in mind for this one, the stakes are higher, the I rating's a little bit higher, 4,000 I rating to get in on these races, so you know it's going to be some of the best this season. And now we're going to head over to Damon. Like we said earlier, the GT3 cars, Damon, definitely some of my favorite cars out here.
Definitely. But before we get into that, we got to talk about the track. And of course, we are here in Donington Park, located near Castle Donington in Derbyshire, England. First layout of this track was actually opened in 1931 in between the First and Second World Wars. After that, it was then closed and not rebuilt until 1971. As it stands right now, the layout is pretty much almost the same up until this point in time. But yeah, Donington Park, great track. A lot of touring cars have gone around here. We got the BTCC, the Deutsche Touring Motorwagen, and sorry, not Motorwagen, Meisterschaft. What am I talking about? DTM, basically. Yeah, so touring cars, very familiar with this area, but what we're taking along on this particular excursion are not DTMs or touring cars. We are taking, of course, the GT3s. Classic favorite of a lot of drivers here in AMX. 500 to 600 horsepower going to the rear wheels, curb weight of around 1,200 to 1,300 kilos with a sequential gearbox, so those paddle shifters are going to be working extra hard this time around. And yeah, a lot of the drivers really prefer driving this, and for good reason. They've got good top end, they've got good aero, they've got good handling. Nothing really bad to say about cars like these. But enough about that. I think it's not about time we take them into qualifying. So Kevin, take it away.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm already seeing quite a few familiar names out here so far. Definitely going to be a good one, especially every time we put the higher stakes on the line, higher prize pools, higher payouts, especially with one of the big things that we're changing up for AMX 15. So we got to see last season, AMX 20, we had a couple shorter races, but they did have a mandatory pit stop in the heat. But out here today, we're switching up with that heat 1 of 90 minutes. They're going to be having to take 2 mandatory pit stops during that one, so absolutely going to change the strategy there. The second race, once we get into heat number 2, we're going to have it pretty much be just a sprint race, 30 minutes. They're going to hit out there, no mandatory pit stops for the second heat. So really, if we see them hitting the pits, it might mean, all right, either they're trying to just get some damage, maybe get a little bit more fuel in the tank. So we'll have to see. I know we've got to see with the TCRs this year, AMX 10 last weekend, they only had 30-minute races, but they started running out of fuel on a couple of the tracks. So Silverstone, pretty large track, although we were on one of the smaller layouts, the drivers still had to fuel up for that. So definitely strategy is going to be key out here today.
Yeah, definitely. And with 2 pit stops being needed to be taken by these drivers, it adds another layer of strategy for these drivers. When you only have 1 pit stop, pretty much have a pretty decent idea of where you want to take it. But if you add on another one, then slowly you start to figure out, okay, how am I going to space out these pit stops so that I don't lose as much time as I would normally? And that goes without saying, the element there. And as mentioned before, running out of fuel is definitely a worry for some of these drivers, given how long we'll be on track. In fact, 90 minutes at Donington Park. That means we have about 64 laps around this course for each driver. So it's not just the strategy, it's also the endurance, the concentration that these drivers need to have in order to make it through without any incident.
Yeah, absolutely. But like we said, a lot of these guys out in the GT3 cars, they're pretty used to these, of course, being some of iRacing's bread and butter, one of the most popular series out there. Of course, a lot of them in the IMSA series, as well as the 24-hour races, 12-hour races. So all of the endurance, these drivers are no stranger to it. And as you can see now, for those of you watching live, the QR code on screen will pop up periodically. I know you see some people already talking in chat, pulling up the timing screen. But feel free whenever that does pop up to scan that QR code and follow along with the timing. See what we see right here. One thing we do see, Pedro Dean doing an amazing job up top right now, holding on to that top spot. So with just over halfway through qualifying, we'll have to see where the grid is going to end up. Keep in mind, again, top 15 reverse grid going into heat number 1. So with that being a bit longer race, and of course the pit stops being a strategy, I think right now these guys aren't too worried about qualifying. I think they're just going to try and get in there, get in the points, and see where they come out for heat number 1.
Yeah, definitely looking through the contender list right now with 15 drivers on the grid. A bunch of names very familiar to us. Of course, if you are a long-time viewer of AMX, you have Pedro Dean, Alberto Senao, Josh Perwin, Juan Blenat, Tobias Soriano, Jackson Rezende, of course, and our back-to-back AMX champion, Gal Valero, on track right now in the McLaren GT3 car. So we were talking just recently, in fact yesterday, during yesterday's races, we were talking about just how much these drivers are still elevating their skill level, their racecraft, in order to become even better drivers than they already have been. And we did see it in some of the drivers here. Pedro Dean was one of them. Talked about him yesterday. Pretty strong contender, I think, early on in the season. But we'll just have to see. Anything can happen, and for each driver's heat, a heat 1 matters absolutely most to them.
So we're gonna see out here too. Yeah, a lot of people out here saying, why is the race so long? 90-minute race. Hey man, these drivers, we like to push them to their limits out here. I know some of the drivers, they see it as a challenge. Some are like, all right, well, definitely got to switch up how I would normally approach a race. But speaking of guys that are usually pretty comfortable in situations like this, Gael Valero, who we've already seen in AMX5, doing a pretty good job. Of course, one of last season's champions, back-to-back champ, currently sitting in 12th place. And now as he crosses the checkered, he is up into 4th with a 127.235. So Gael Valero able to get up into that 4th place. We'll have to keep an eye on him, as well as right here, Bruno De Carmo. I've seen a lot of these drivers out here, their teams, of course, Delete the Esports Apex Racing team. A lot of these guys out during the Indy 6 Hour this weekend. I know these guys are trying to power through a lot of races going on. Also got to see FIA F4 Esports Championship is currently going on. So a lot of stuff, a lot of news in sim racing. I'm glad that these guys are able to come out here. And of course, AMX, where we like to switch it up, not be in the sense of traditional esports racing. Like to see what these drivers can do, no matter what the car, no matter what the format. And right now, Juan Blenat able to best Pedro Dean right there. So 126.94, able to get under 127. So Juan Blenat, the first driver to get under that 127 mark.
Yeah, but look at Pedro Dean's second pass right now. It does seem to be best in sector. And will he be able to pit? No, he just goes straight into the pit lane. I think he was on track for the fastest lap in session there. I wonder why he went straight into the pit lane there. Maybe he felt like the last sector wasn't really paying off for him and decided to sack that lap. He will have a couple more attempts, however, so it's not out of the woods yet, Juan Blenat. The other drivers still looking to make their mark here in qualifying.
So now you can see, I love some of these liveries that we're seeing out here today. Of course, right there we got Josh Perwin in the Hymo branded Audi. Man, that's a pretty interesting color combo. Definitely going to stick out on track, so that makes our job a little bit easier. I know some of these drivers there for a while. We've seen a lot of red liveries out there. Of course, we got to see, I think previously, Team Redlines and Drago Racing, their liveries were pretty similar. I know Drago's now gone to the all red, but now we might get them a little bit confused with the race clutch vehicles. So, I mean, it's kind of hard. I think a lot of these drivers out here, a lot of teams, similar colors, but nonetheless, definitely one thing they all have in common is some of the top drivers. So Josh Perrine looking like he wasn't too happy with that. Now on his out lap, we'll see if he's able to get any higher than 5th place. But here's one, speaking of Drago Racing, Nico Wierzbicki. Of course, a lot of drivers out in the Audi today. Typically we see a pretty good spread, but I think today it's looking like Lamborghini, Audi, and Porsche is pretty much what we're going to see the majority of today.
Yeah, and Valero, actually the only driver on the grid in the McLaren. I have a feeling he sees something in that car that the rest of the grid doesn't. Regardless, of course, we're definitely going to see a relatively even spread of 3 cars in particular, which is the Audi R8, the Porsche 911, as well as the Lamborghini Huracan, which is being phased out. Unfortunately, we won't be able to see new Huracans anymore in the future. But regardless, they'll be immortalized here in iRacing. And as we're talking about racing liveries, of course, we do remember Team Redline livery, AMX Racing liveries, the SCRT liveries we were talking about as well. A couple of drivers aren't there this time around, so no Diego Cariel. Kind of one of the mainstays that we normally see. Kobe's got that Pokemon livery on his Audi. That was cool.
And looking out here on track 2, so Donington Park does have a couple different layouts. Of course, today we are running the Grand Prix layout, which is a little bit longer. We have going into, I believe, what is known as the S's. So we got the S's right there, turn number 9 on the national layout. That will typically go and cut off, pretty much go right into the Wheatcroft straight. So out here a little bit longer, of course, introducing that giant hairpin on turn number 11 and another one on the final turn, turn number 12. So right there too, we should see, I think this track, I mean, it's really optimized for those big, long flowing tracks. So it's not a very technical track out here. So I think that's really what is key to a lot of these drivers on the vehicles they chose. I know, of course, with the Audi, that one is known for being great in these long straight courses.
Yeah, and another thing we do have to pay attention to the track is, of course, the elevation changes, which may make some of the longer flowing high-speed sections seem a little bit more daunting, but nothing these drivers can't handle. And Peter Zuba there in the red light Lamborghini looking absolutely fly on the track right now, and he's also flying, trying to get some temperature into those tires so he can get out on track and really go for that flying lap here. We've got less than 2 minutes till the end of qualifying before we begin the quiz. And out of nowhere, Ralph Benitez into second place, 127.1, still not cracking that sub 127 time, but definitely going to be pretty happy with that result regardless.
So absolutely great job up top. So we got the Argentinian and Brazil. I think that is going to be the battle out here today. But of course, we see that time and time again out here in AMX. One thing definitely we'll have to see from the middle of the pack. I know there are plenty of drivers sitting in there. Right here, Ralph Benitez, got to see him out there this weekend as well. Like I said, a lot of esports going on this weekend. Love to see them come out, especially knowing that the payouts are big. We'll have to see if that's enough motivation. But here we go. Simon Demori out here, beautiful Falcon livery on that Porsche. So one of the few Porsches out here. We only have about 3 on the grid today. So we'll have to see is all 3 of them kind of hanging around in the middle of the pack. Like I said, out here, of course, for AMX. Ooh, as we see Simon Demori getting a little squirrely now off into the gravel. Like I was saying before that, out here in AMX, we do like to run the fixed setups to make sure that, hey, no one's going to have an advantage over one another because of the setup. So I know we've gotten, there's, I'd say, mixed emotions sometimes, depending on who you ask. I know, again, it's one of those things, some drivers, they enjoy it because they know they're going to be getting a similar car. Other drivers say, hey, man, we want to be able to do what we have. So, you know, definitely now that we're starting to get into some more endurance races, of course, AMX20 last season, we'll have to see how the formats change. You know, we're always changing up, so we never know what can happen. But there, Pedro Dean getting back up into second place, and now on board with Alberto Sanel.
Yeah, looking at the timing boards right now, we've got less than a minute to the end of qualifying. Doesn't look like any of the drivers will be able to really get out there, and you can see a lot of drivers are coming back into the pits. Still got a few drivers on to try to see if they can squeeze in that one more lap before the end of it all. Valero dropped down to P5 here. not a really usual spot for him, but here comes the car. We're looking at his second times. It does seem like he's really improving on himself. Will there be an improvement on his time? Yes, it is. He goes up to P3, last minute flying lap from him into the 127.1s as well. So helping Ralph Benitez and Pedro Dean as well. Earlier on, we missed it, but he jumped back out to P2, dropping Ralph Benitez to P4.
So right there, great qualifying from all of our drivers as we wait to see the official times rolling in from that qualifying session. But it does look like Juan Blanat will be sitting atop the leaderboard. Of course, that top 15 reverse grid will put him all the way back into 15th, but he has 90 minutes to fight his way all the way back up to first. I know he has the pace to do it. So there we can see our Ben Q session winner from qualifying, Juan Blanat, with a 1 minute 26.856. So absolutely blazing times out here from our drivers. Pedro Dean in second, Bruno De Carmo coming in third, Ralph Benitez in fourth, Alberto Senao in fifth, Gael Valero sixth, Josh Perween 7th, Tobias Soriano in 8th, Jackson SNJ in 9th place, Fabrizio Belziti in 10th, Peter Zuba 11th, Simon Demori in 12th, Gerard Sardeni 13th, Nikodem Birzbisky 14th, and rounding out 15th place, we have David Givok. So right there, your top 15 drivers, all of them will make that reverse grid for heat number 1. Damon, any predictions going into heat number 1?
I mean, just look at those qualifying times. The top 14 drivers are all within a second of one another, so it's going to be a tough one to call. My money is going to be probably on Juan Blanat, but I don't want to jinx him way too early. I know how fast he can be, but just got to make sure he keeps it clean over the course of 90 minutes.
And I'm going to go out on a limb and say, you know what? I want to see something fresh. I think right here, knowing strategy is going to be one of the biggest things. I think it's going to be someone coming up from the middle of the pack, probably middle of the qualifying, because definitely, I mean, I'm not going to give any names, I guess. I think it's just going to be someone out there, kind of midfield, maybe towards the back, of course, reverse grid, putting them up front. We'll have to see. I think right now, though, the biggest thing that's going to be is when these drivers take their pit stops. I think right now it's going to be with only 15 drivers. They have a little bit more breathing room than what some of these guys got to see, of course, running the iRacing special event, Indy 6 Hour. Some of these classes got a little bit hectic with so many cars on the grid. So with 15 exactly hitting that reverse grid, have the likes of, good chance, Toby Soriano, Gael Valero, Jackson SNJ. It's anyone's game out here today.
Yeah, definitely. And with the good thing about having exactly 15 drivers on the grid is that after every race, after every qualifying session, every driver gets coupled. No one gets left out. And of course, everyone ends up walking away with something. Might not be a lot, but it definitely will be something for them to at least come home with. They're doing the parade lap right now, as you can see the drivers. Some of them might be sweeping a little bit, trying to get them into their tires here. But as you said, maybe someone from the middle of the pack will come out being the dark horse here in this particular race. But you and I are going to be here for 90 minutes, trying to make the most of it.
And so just like that, the green flag drops and our drivers are off. So getting a great commanding lead, holding on to David Givok, followed by Nikodem Birzbisky. So up front, we'll have to see as now going almost 3 wide there in the middle of the pack right here. So these couple corners, not the widest. So these guys are going to have to be very careful. Of course, GT3 cars, take a little bit of damage, but we'll have to see as now drivers are already slotting in line, getting up to pace. Again, in and out here, still slightly cold tires, going to have to be a little bit more careful, but so far, things are staying pretty clean as now. Fabrizio Balzidi, and it looks like a bumper's getting ripped off. That looks like Jackson SNJ. So someone got into the back of him, his rear bumper getting completely torn off right there. We'll have to see how that affects his performance.
Yeah, that's the largest bit of damage we've seen so far in lap 1, but otherwise a very clean lap from all the drivers here as they're coming back around into the start lap 2 very, very soon, of course. And I spoke way too soon because that's Juan Blanat. He's just spun off. Luckily, with a long endurance race such as this, you have a lot of time to catch back up to the pack and hopefully make an impact as well. Meanwhile, that's to say they're the exposed rear end, still hovering around the mid pack. Juan Blanat 7 seconds down on everyone else. Mid pack battle is still quite close. If the Z-Wall trying to his best to pull away from the rest of the grid. Nico Birzbisky behind him as well with Gerard Sardini in Peter Zuba, Mori rounding up top 5 as they're crossing into the recall straight. And so far, it's pretty good, but Rexon was then, of course, having to go into the pits to repair all that damage.
Yeah, so that's unfortunate for him, but like we said, this will get one of his mandatory pit stops out of the way, so hopefully he'll be able to come out into clean air and just start setting some fast laps. But right now, the battle's still going on. These drivers towards the front of the pack are top 6, 7 drivers holding on pretty close to each other, so we'll have to see if there's a bit of a gap now going on between 7th and 8th. But right now, Nico Wierzbicki just trying to be patient. I think that's going to be the key to success out here in heat number 1. These guys being out here 90 minutes, definitely just going to have to be patient, not going to try anything too crazy. But once again, like we said, they do know that, hey, this is a little bit longer race than maybe what they're used to, but seeing how many of these guys normally do different IMSA races, different races that are much longer, I think they're going to have no problem out here today. So Emma Gvox, though, might be getting a little bit more comfortable as we see Wierzbicki and Sardeni almost battling it out in the last couple of turns.
Yeah, gap between them less than about 6 tenths of a second separating these 3 drivers. If you add on Peter Zuba at the back, that's about a second between these 4 drivers. And wow, I mean, you gotta give credit to them for being able to keep it this long where they're this close to one another. But of course, that is something that you really have to expect when the minimum I rating you have to be to join this race is about 4,000. So that means you have to own your racecraft in online lobbies, doing as much racing as you can in order to really qualify for this, and definitely showing us how it's done here at AMX15. Meanwhile, you can see the incident with one play now that, oh, he got tapped and then just spun the car around, managing to recover and avoid really any incident with everyone else, but that's not going to be a good look for him. He's going to try and catch back up, get up his gap from 7 seconds down to 5 now, so we know he has the pace.
And again, to see out here, just catching some other races out there as well. I know I got to see Toby Soriano the other day out there in the NASCAR vehicles, taking home at Watkins Glen, doing pretty good. So, like I said, I love being able to see all these drivers. Of course, GT3, a lot of the IMSA cars, as well as GTP, LMD2, so LMP2, sorry. A lot of these guys out here definitely specializing in those, so it's great to see them out. But right here, we have Peter Zuba trying to hold off Simon Demori. These guys right here going too wide now. Simon Demori going up in the inside. Will he be able to make the move stick? He has it on the hairpin. He'll be able to see it and just is not able to get it to stick right there, having to slot right back in behind. So Peter Zuba, Simon Demori, great job, but unfortunately for Demori, he's not able to make that move stick. So I'm sure he's going to be looking to attack here pretty soon again.
Yeah, and the important thing for these drivers to recognize is the fact that they don't really have to go slow, have victory. It is still a long race, from 4 laps in, 4 laps then, and they should understand that you can really afford to be patient here because there's kind of quite a bit of time, especially when the pack is supposed to go together. It really only becomes a desperation move when someone starts running away from the rest of the grid, as Nico Wierzbicki that all 4 wheels on the grass, losing a bit of time to David Ziegler there, still holding on to that lead. Some of the other drivers that we're looking at right now, Kyle Valero is still stuck in that midfield behind the ZT when in front of Bruno Carmo, and right now it's still heating up. Battle trying to kick off.
So as we can see out here, a lot of these drivers too, I mean, definitely just seeing the composure on their face. They definitely know they have to be locked in. So seeing so many of these guys going from one endurance race yesterday out here, knowing they're going to be running another 90-minute race, I think that's really the biggest thing is just, hey, you just got to be out here, find a good flow and run it. Azul, right there, we see the number 12 of Sardeni now side by side with Nico Wierzbicki. So it's a battle for second place going on. Great shot from the front bumper of Peter Zuba. These two guys again, door to door, side by side. Wierzbicki not going to give it up that easy now, holding back onto that second place, and a great move right there, but Nico Wierzbicki able to hold on to it.
Yeah, and Sardini might pay for it as well, as if Peter Zuba was looking to pull alongside him as they're entering turn 1 out of the weak cross straight here. Not able to make that move happen. Sardini holding on to that lead to the holding spot for the time being, but now he knows Peter Zuba is looking for an opportunity. He has to be really careful with the way he finds his attack, because the moment he opens up the bottle and leaves up a gap in his own defenses that Venezuela can take advantage of. So we'll have to see whether or not it heats up later on in the race, but right now the gap between first and seventh, about 2 seconds between these 7 cars here, which is a very, very minute gap.
We've got to see, of course, seen yesterday, Peter Zuba was one of those that he was part of the competition yesterday out at the Indy 6-hour race. His team taking 5th place in the GTP. So a lot of these drivers I know, of course, Redline getting bested by the BS competition yesterday. But right now, Sorg decided we got an incident going on right there. That looks like the number 2 getting involved. Ooh, and another one right there with the number 6 of Gvok. So Gvok holding it down, unfortunately, just getting rear-ended, spinning out. And there we have Alberto's and now another driver. So right there, I think that's our first big incident of the race so far, going into lap number 6.
Yeah, 6 laps in, this driver is probably going to have to go back into the pits. You can see a bit of damage there, suspension damage on Bruno Carbo's car. He's going to take his first mandatory pit stop to get and repair the damage that was caused. That means that Alberto Sernao as well as David Zewalt will be doing the same thing. Zewalt, I think, was the worst victim of that incident. Took a T-bone right inside of his car. So it's probably a lot of damage that he has to repair as well. But that opens up Gal Valero now up P5, trying to run away from his what I believe to be his good competitors of Juan Renan and Pedro Dean, as well as Bruno Carbo, who's currently out of it. But remember again, these cars that are running in front, they haven't taken their pit stops yet, so we'll have to see when they decide to do it.
And here we see, so like I said, a lot of those guys, that definitely leaves room for Jackson Sanjay, who got into an incident on the first lap, now back up to 12th place. But here we go, seen on Peter Zuba back here, gets overtaken by Gael Valero. Great move to the inside, just left that door wide open, and Gael Valero now slotting it up into 4th place. So we'll have to see if he's able to capitalize on here, doing a great job so far. Like we said, we have about 4 drivers now that have hit the pits so far. So keep in mind, everyone out here, heat number 1 for AMX15, these drivers do have 2 mandatory pit stops that they have to take.
Yeah, and for what it's worth, what I think in terms of strategy is, I'll get back to that point in just a little bit. We're going to have a full screen replay of what happened here. Venezuela goes in, but as he goes in, he ends up flipping David Zewalt on the exit of that corner, pushing him, T-boning him, forcing him onto the track. He didn't get onto the runoff, which means he is a dangerous obstacle for the cars there. And a lot of these cars, you can see Bruno Carbo unable to avoid. Neither is Alberto Senao. And Alberto Senao also took the brunt of the impact, spun him all the way around there, and immediately 3 cars basically out of the running early on. So they have a tall order ahead of them. Get the damage repaired, get back onto the track, and try to catch back up to the rest of the field. At the end of that replay, however, I want to go back to what I was talking about regarding the pit strategies. And I'm thinking if you're somewhere in the mid-pack, you probably want to take your pit stops a little bit earlier than the rest, especially from the cars in front. Because what you want to do, especially if you know that you have the pace, is probably try to see how well you can run in the air and match up pace. Because once they do their pit stops, the guys ahead of you, that is, you have a lot of opportunity to catch back up.
And right here we see a battle going on between Balzidi and Soriano. So good job right here. We see the 2 Argentinians battling it out. They are not teammates, however, but fellow countrymen side by side. So I think, like we said earlier, we're going to see a lot of battles going back and forth between some of the Argentinians, Brazilians. But now back to the battle going on for first place. We have Nico Wierzbicki still holding on strong in first place, followed by Sardeni in second. So right here, the two guys up in front leading in the Audi R8. Definitely going to be trying to see, all right, when are we going to hit the pits, especially after that. Nico Wierzbicki able to bounce back. Some of these guys, we'll have to see where they slot in there. I know Simon Demori, too, from that full screen replay, looked like he barely missed the incident, just might have barely scraped the rear end of one of those cars. So a few of these guys, we'll have to see if any of their performance is affected. Like I said, only a couple drivers got taken out really bad, but there's still a few that brush on those cars. So we'll have to keep in mind here as we are currently lap number 8, your leading order. Nico Wierzbicki, Gerard Serdarani, and in third place, Simon Demori.
Yeah, and currently looking at the live timing boards, which you guys are also able to see from your scenes at home. Fastest lap being helped by Juan Blenat, so even though he got taken out very, very early on, that 126, the only sub 127 time, that should tell you all you need to know about how much pace Juan Blenat is carrying. And look at that, he's already back up 10, and we're only lap 9 into the 64 lap race, so definitely has all the time in the world to catch back up. While the battle for the front here, Simon Demori hunting down Gerard Sardini, trying to see if he can make it through him as well. And we know Simon Demori is a very, very quick driver. In fact, we've seen him on ACC as well, and he was one of the dominant performers there.
And speaking of that, so now lap number 9. So we are only about 12 minutes into this race. Like we said, folks, again, it's going to be about a 90-minute race out here today. 24 degrees out there. I can see a little bit of overcast kind of creeping up into the track. So we'll have to see if there's going to be time for it to rain during this race. That would definitely shake things up once again. Of course, we got to see that last season for AMX20. Some of these races, once the rain hit, that definitely made the drivers switch up in the grid. Some drivers towards the front of the pack really shine, while others really played into the strategy of having to change their tires or not change their tires. So those skies right there looking like they're starting to get a little bit gray. We'll have to wait and see, but still, Nico Wierzbicki doing a great job of holding off Sardini. I think at this point, I'm not sure if these drivers are going to just, again, like I said, really be patient, wait to see for the other person to make a mistake. But right now, Nico Wierzbicki looking like he's not really making much mistakes out here today.
Yeah, and that's a really good point that you just brought up about the dynamic weather. We definitely might see the clouds overcast on the sky right now. We're a lot brighter at the start of the race. But as you said, the rain might come to put a damper on any strategies that these drivers may have already formulated in the beginning. We'll have to see how well they adapt these changes on track conditions. Nico Wierzbicki right now still trying to hold off Gerard Sardini, really closing in that gap, less than 2 tenths separating them for the time being. Galvalero now back up to P4. Minipass Zuba is now chasing down Simon Demori, and looks like he might just make a move sooner rather than later. He's full on side. Ooh, Simon Demori giving him a little love tap on the back there, but Galvalero makes that pass relatively effortlessly, and now looks like he is back up onto the podium. Great drive from him so far.
And right there, Gael Valero just once again showing you why he is a back-to-back AMX champ out here, as well as looking to claim another one. I mean, I know he's out here looking to claim as many championships as he can, but he definitely has his work cut out for him, as Sardini and Wierzbicki still holding on pretty good pace. Might have to check the sector timing coming up here just to see exactly where these guys are on each other, but definitely from the last laps, another one that we got to see, Juan Blenat, who of course was fastest in qualifying, now is currently holding on to the fastest lap out here in heat number 1. So a great job from Juan Blenat, already climbing up the pack, climbing up the ranks, currently back into 9th place. We'll have to see where he's able to slide out again. Once these drivers go in and out of the pits, they have 2 mandatory pit stops. So Juan Blenat so far has not taken a pit stop at all either. So definitely has his work cut out for him.
Yeah, and looking through the graph right now, so far all the drivers that have taken pit stops are still around the back, about 35 seconds separating Josh Irwin and Jasser Resende. And the pit lane here at Donington Park isn't particularly long, so there's not really a lot of time you can take up there, even if the driver in front of you decides to pit. I think gap about 15-20 seconds should be enough where you will get undercut when you go for your pit stop. But 15-second gap is quite a lot to try and make in terms of how competitive these cars are. Remember, these cars are all in the same class. They all have about the same kind of performance. So, they're not here up to 9. He didn't pass Petrodine, trying to see if he can now catch Ralph Benitez here. We'll have to see he's pulling up alongside. Got a bit of a slipstream there. Diving in on the inside. Closing the door on Ralph Benitez. Taking the pass, and Juan Blenat really man on fire right now.
And from when we got to see a few laps back, of course, right there on that hairpin, a pretty dangerous place to try and make a move like that, but Wembley not able to do it with ease. So like I said, it's a lot of high risk, high reward out here at Donington Park, especially out here on the Grand Prix layout, adding the addition of those couple of really tight hairpins. I think that's where a lot of people are really going to look to make their moves. Of course, some of these have a lot more sweeping turns, a lot longer straights. So with the high speeds out here too, the draft is going to be oh so important for some of these drivers to really try and make a move. But back to the front of the pack right here. Again, Grzybski, Sardani. Now, Sardani looking, he's peeking to the inside a little bit. I think right now it's really just a mind game. I think Sardani is just going to try and get Grzybski to make a move, try to force him, of course, to make a mistake and take advantage of that. But right now, because they know as well, once they start battling it out, that may leave the door wide open for Guy Alvalero to come and get right into the fight as well.
Yeah, and so far they managed to keep him at bay, but you can see lap by lap the gap between P1 and 2 and P3 is ever so slightly decreasing. Less than a second now, almost less than 0.6 of a second separating these two drivers. And you know for a fact, Guy Valero, once he has you in his sights, he doesn't let go. He'll try and pressure you all the way until you make a mistake, or he just passes you effortlessly because he's just that good. Not to discredit any of the drivers, because all of these drivers with their 4K I rating definitely going to be at the top of their game here. But here comes Vespi, still holding on to that lead. Gerard Sardini really tried to make a move there, but was unable to finish it off. Doesn't mean he's giving up earlier. Along side by side yet again as they're entering turn 1, and just like that, the rain shows up suddenly, and all of a sudden these cars caught off guard, losing a bit of grip. There are the two cars of Nico Vespi and Gerard Sardini. Simone Demori takes advantage of that, and immediately, oh no, what is drivers gonna do? They gotta think fast, adapt the strategy. If the track gets really wet, really fast, they're gonna have to immediately.
And that leaves the door wide open for Simone Demori. Of course, I mean, every track is different, but we've seen this man in the rain before. We know that he is a master. And a little bit of contact right there between him and Grzybski. So Grzybski now just getting a little bit loose out here. Of course, like we said, with the rain coming out, it looks like it's just the sprinkling, just the slightest. So we'll have to see if that's all the rain we get or if it's going to start coming down a little bit more. Of course, these drivers, as we come back, it's looking like right now it's just parts of the track, it's coming down, other parts not so much. But like I said, Simon Demori definitely now going to be one to watch for as the rain is coming down, as well as a few drivers behind him as well. So Peter Zubin now in 4th place, and we see a lot of action going on behind there. These guys starting to get a little bit, see a lot of real action from those picture-in-picture cameras. These guys just trying to keep the car straight, trying to keep it on board, and now the wipers are going full-blown. So definitely with 2 mandatory pit stops at any time, these drivers can hop back in there and take their, well, at least the first of their mandatory pit stops. So definitely with Gael Valero leading the race, as well Nico Grzybski, there's a bit of a gap. It wouldn't be a bad time for any of these drivers. I think they're going to try and hold off as long as they can until it really gets to the point and try to go for that overcut out here.
Yeah, but you can already see that the spray coming off the cars really tells you how heavy the rain is, and whether or not they dare spend another lap on those slick tires outside on the track really is going to be testament to see how well they get their cars under control. I'm willing to bet that at this point in time, a few of these drivers are going to enter the pit to do the tire swap and then have the second mandatory pit stop, be changing back into the slicks once the skies clear up.
And so I see some of the chat out there too, asking, "Hey man, shouldn't these guys be pitting already?" And I'm right there with you. You know, a lot of these guys, like I said though, I think really they're going to wait until the last possible minute to hit the pit stops. I think they're going to try and stay out on the slicks, quite literally until their cars start sliding to the point of where they can't control it. So far, these guys doing a pretty good job of being able to control it. Of course, being just a little bit more cautious, and now you can see on the timing screen, so we only have Albertson now, the first to hit the pits and switch to the wet tires. Let's see if any of these drivers start to follow suit. It's been the same right now. Like you said, we are lap 14 out of 64 out here. We still have just over an hour in this race left. Definitely as Peter Zuba now, Kobe Soriano, Wembley not so. Simone Demori also hitting into the pit lane, and I think this is where things are about to switch up a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. And then afterwards, it's going to be a matter of how long you stay out on the wets before you come back to the pit, because these wet tires will disintegrate extremely quickly once the weather turns dry again. And so far, these cars look like they have it under control even in the wet. So maybe they don't feel that sense of where like, oh no, I have to switch tires immediately. They still feel like, now we can go a couple more laps before it really becomes out of control here. And Valero is eking out that gap. In fact, it was about only a couple laps ago that he has people, but he immediately now has increased to 4 seconds. So this shows you how much pace that Valero has over the rest of the competition there. As Pedro Dean was in the pits actually switching out to wet tires as we saw earlier. So now these drivers in the wet will have to test the metal and see if they can keep up with the pace of other drivers.
And so we'll have to see. So right there with the weather changing, the tide now shifts. So these drivers, Gael Valero still doing a great job, able to get over a 5.5 second gap currently over Nico Wierzbicki. So Gael Valero showing his prowess out here on the rain out at Donington Park. We'll have to see though. Like I said, these drivers still on dries. A lot of them now. Alberto Senal, the first driver to make both pit stops. We'll have to see if it dries up later on, where exactly it's going to put us. Oh, we got someone spinning out there in the rain. It looks like if they were trying to enter the pits and got caught up with another driver, that is Gerard Sardeni. So now he's getting back onto the track. So we'll have to see exactly for that. I'm not sure if he was going to plan on heading into the pits. Of course, he is still on dry tires, as now most of the field has switched over to the wets.
Yeah, and I think at that point in time, near the late end of that lap, they were just starting to realize, okay, we're not getting any more grip. We're getting back into the pit lane. But a couple of drivers here, Gerard Sardeni, Ralph Benitez, and Belziti staying out on those dry tires. We'll have to see if they'll actually be able to maintain their pace, as Valero now on the wets is charging forward. You can see really struggling to tire under control. 600 horsepower in the rain is no joke, even on wet tires, but so far, looks like he has it under control.
And of course, like we mentioned earlier, Gael Valero, the only person out there in the new McLaren 720S GT3 car. So we'll have to see. I know a lot of drivers so far are saying just how great of a car it is. It feels super balanced. Some people saying maybe a little bit too much, to the point that it feels a little bit numb, doesn't have quite that wow factor. But here, side by side, we see Pedro Dean right there, Jackson Asenje going off Pedro Dean. So these guys, a little bit of a hip check there, going out through that corner, and now Pedro Dean going off to the grass. That could have ended up a lot worse than it was. You see, he's not too happy about that one. So Pedro Dean now slightly falling behind Jackson Asenje, now having to fight off Josh Perween. So Josh Perween taking advantage of that, now only 0.4 of a second behind Pedro Dean.
Yeah, and the last time I casted a race in the rain, it was AMX20 at the Northside the last time. As here is the incident with Gerard Sardeni here. Oh, looking as they're coming out the board and into the wheat cross straight, he just gets tapped in the back by, I think that was the car of not there. So, yeah, really unfortunate for him. Luckily, he didn't tag any other drivers as they were entering the pit lane. He just half of his car was blocking the pit lane, so I'm not surprised at that. Jackson Resende, he stayed out on the dry tires, and now he's paying the price. Lost all that grip, spun around a bit, and now he's paying the consequences. He probably should enter the pit by the end of this lap.
Yeah, so that move right there might have cost Jackson Asenje, quite a bit of positions, as now most of the drivers ahead of him are already on their wets. Of course, now it looks like Benitez, one of the last few drivers to finally hit the pits and switch over to the wets as well. As we see a couple other people there, Sardeni, Belziti now as well, hitting the pits. So a lot of drama already going on out here in heat number 1. Like I said, right now we are almost up to 30 minutes into this race. So lap number 17 out here at 64. Simon Demori now putting on a great battle between himself and Toby Soriano. These guys going side by side, door to door, but Soriano so far holding it on. Like we said, of course, out here, once the rain comes in, you're going to be wanting to take a lot different driving lines than you normally would on some of these turns. Make sure that you don't hit, depending on how much rubber has been laid down on that track, can be very dangerous. But right now, these guys doing a great job. Of course, this is one thing that we love to see out here. Endurance races with dynamic weather, definitely putting it on. You have to defend slightly different. You have to pass a little bit different. But so far, I think right here, these will be two of the drivers, Toby Soriano, Simon Demori, to watch towards the end of the race as well.
Yeah, definitely. And not to mention the addition of the pit strategy really adds a layer of excitement and depth into these endurance races. So Toby Soriano there still think Simon Demori unable to really make any headways in terms of mounting an attack, and especially in this kind of weather, it's very dangerous, especially even on the wets. You could always end up slipping and losing the rear end and finding yourself tail end into a barrier. So far, drivers still have it under control, but you can definitely feel that the speed, overall speed of the race has slowed down tremendously.
And looking on here, looks like during this lap 15, seems like that was the right time to pit, as that's when the majority of the drivers, of course, our leaders out here too, Gal Valero, Peter Zuba, Toby Soriano, and they're just seeing the incident from Jackson Desenje. Ooh, just absolutely sliding and in the rain on the slicks. Once he hits that slide, there's nowhere to go. He's a passenger in his own vehicle out there. So the Lamborghini luckily not getting more damage than it possibly could have. Didn't end up in the wall, just ended up off track. But now that puts him back quite a few positions, all the way back into 13th place. So some of these drivers, depending on their pit count, may be almost a lap down at this point. So we'll have to see, is now Gael Valero over an 8-second gap over the other drivers. So Gael Valero now able to get a substantial lead out here. And great battle still going on out here. Josh Perween and Pedro Dean. Of course, Pedro Dean we saw get a bit of a hip check earlier, shunted off track, and now still doing what he can to make up that time.
Yeah, and Pedro Dean is still in a relatively favorable spot for himself. P6 there, nothing to sneeze at. There is about a 5-second gap between him and P5 ahead of him. Regardless, however, there is Jackson Resende, the man trying to catch back up to Gerardo Sardeni here. We'll have to see if he's able to make it do. He's very pretty aggressive on the corner entries there. Definitely would be happy with how he let his car go in the middle of the range just now before he did the tire swap. So really going ham on that corner, trying to make up the lost time.
There we see a lot of the Delinda Esports guys out here today not having the best of luck, but like we said, it's still early on in this race. A lot can happen. You see now still holding off. Pedro Dean still holding off Josh Perrine and Juan Blainot lurking in the background. We know Blainot, of course, from qualifying has the pace in the dry, but does he have the pace in the wet to be able to get out here now? Of course, people saying, showing tire types now. Yeah, that's a great thing that we do have out here with our timing, is now showing the types of tires that they are on, whether they're on wets or dries. You know, we've seen in other cars, like the Indy cars, or let's say even some of the Formula cars, just what tire compound. But now, hey, we have a simple wet or dry. So we'll have to see, though, as everyone is on the wet tires currently. Simon Demori out here in 4th place, still holding it on to pretty good from where he started in the race. We've seen him catching up, fall back all over the place a little bit, but like we've seen earlier, these guys towards the front of the pack have excellent racecraft out here in the rain today.
So I'm going to pose the question to you, and you can decide if you want me or not. What if you crest the halfway point of the race, and then the rain just stops, right? So they end up having to pit, get back on the dry tires, but then they still have to cover half the race. Do you think that they will end up needing to take a third pit stop in order to keep the cars going all the way to the end, or will they try to do their best to go all the way on one set of tires?
I mean, knowing how quick the wet tires start to degrade, I think they'll try to stick out pretty far. I mean, of course, a lot of these guys, it's really going to help if they have their teams on comms with them out there, being able to check the radar for them. So, I mean, it's hard to tell from us up here, but I think that might be the strategy is, hey, same way as when the rain came in, hold off on the dry tires as long as you can. And, ooh, there we see the incident picture of Alberto Senao. Ooh, just getting loose out there on the wet track, sliding out all the way right into the wall. So he's had to get into the pits to fix that damage. But back to what you were saying, you know, I think it's going to be pretty similar to what we've seen out here when it started raining. Stay on the dries as long as you can to maximize that time. I think that might be the same thing if it dries up pretty quick out here. Just stay on the wets until you are completely certain that it's not going to rain anymore. Then you hit back right onto the dry tires. Of course, most of these drivers only have one pit stop so far, so that will be their second mandatory pit stop. Of course, they'll have to keep in mind the fuel. And right here, side by side, we see the move. Peter Zuba, Toby Soriano. Again, Peter Zuba able to hold on to second place now over Toby Soriano. So we'll have to see is right there. These guys, they know the track's still a bit slick, trying to dive into the inside, make some great moves happen. But at the same time, they've seen plenty of spin outs, as right now, again, peaking Toby Soriano, but he will hold on to third place as we go into lap 21.
Yeah, and right now, Zuba under a considerable amount of pressure here from Toby Soriano. Toby Soriano is not letting up on the offensive here. You can see that bumper cam is just him breathing down the neck of Zuba, telling him, hey, I'm here, you better watch out. If you miss one mistake, I'm coming to get you. And really, Zuba has to try his best, level best, to maintain his composure, make sure he doesn't lose any more time, because the gap between him and Valero is still consistently at 2 seconds there. So they're pretty much on pace in this rainy weather, but if these cars continue battling, they end up slowing each other down, and when you're this far behind the leader, you get to one behind.
Now there too, seeing some people out in the Twitch chat too, just asking how realistic is the rain on iRacing. I mean, I've seen some videos from actual pro drivers putting out on their YouTube channel, just saying, you know, the great thing about this is definitely you have your wet lines, your dry lines. Get to see, since all these tracks are laser scanned in, you really get to see those divots where the water kind of settles, as we can see on track right now from the onboard. Just really where the water sits, you don't want to be in those puddles. And right now, Toby Soriano looking to make a move to the outside once again on the hairpin, but it looks like he just doesn't quite have enough pace in the rain out here. Of course, really trying to hold on to that, but just not enough grip out here, even on these wet tires.
Yeah, definitely say be careful. Even on wet tires, the rain can still catch you unawares, as we saw earlier on with Alberto. So now, even though you have the wet tires, doesn't guarantee you have the grip you require to really go around the track, even on your own. Even less so when you're locked in a battle with someone else that you can see. Because these two are battling each other, they're slowing each other down, and Simon De Mori is only just a second behind them, so he could end up making the three-way battle for that P2 spot. Yeah, Zuba really has to maintain order, really be careful, but he did not get a good exit off of that. Toby Soriano immediately capitalizes on that and tries to make the pass happen. However, Zuba notices that, immediately goes on the defensive, and Toby Soriano left with his pants down yet again, unable to really make an effective attack.
You can just hear from that overhead shot, just the V10 of that Lamborghini screaming, but these two also battling it out has left room for Simon De Mori to catch right back up to the rear of Toby Soriano. So Simon De Mori now trying to get onto the podium. Of course, folks, we are out here lap number 22 of 64. Gael Valero still a commanding lead, 9 seconds over Peter Zuba in second, and of course Toby Soriano trying to hold on to it, trying to take that place away from it. It's been back and forth the last several laps between these two drivers, and now a two-way battle is going to turn into a three-way battle as Simon De Mori getting the inside line right there. The door was left open. He takes advantage of it, but will he be able to hold on to third place? No, he does not, as we go into the next left-hander, the next hairpin right here. Simon De Mori doing a great job, just letting him know, hey man, I am in this race right behind you. If you guys can't figure this out, I'm going to take that position away from both of you.
Yeah, and you can see Toby Soriano was definitely aware of that particular instance. So it's really hard in the middle of the car battle, because you have to clear the fact you have to not be offensive against the car in front of you, but you also have to be playing defensive for the car behind you. Don't want to lose that position, want to do your best to gain the position, and it's sort of just caught between a rock and a hard place right now. We'll have to see if they'll be able to catch up back up to Zuba in order to make that move happen. And Simon De Mori lets off the throttle a little bit, giving them quite a lot of room here. So Toby Soriano immediately has the weight lifted off of his shoulders, and now he gets to go back on the offensive here against Zuba.
And there, picture in picture, we also see a battle going on for P5 between Pedro Dean and Juan Blanat. So we knew it was inevitable. Juan Blanat trying to make back his pace one position at a time. Of course, he's already up 9 positions, as well as Pedro Dean. So both of those drivers doing really great in the middle of the pack. Gael Valero up 9 positions from where he started to take the lead. So I think really right now we'll have to see where these battles hang out, but currently there's about 11-second gap between 5th place and 4th place of Simon Demori. So Demori also falling back now 2 seconds behind Toby Soriano. So what he was trying to make a move earlier now starting to slowly fall back. And of course, as the sun is starting to come out a little bit more, the clouds are receding, the rain has since ceased, but the track is still wet. We'll have to see if these guys are going to start pushing it a little bit more.
Well, you know, I was kind of just kidding when I said the rain was going to stop at lap 32, but maybe I wasn't so wrong after all. You can see the rainstorm has turned into a relatively light drizzle now. But as you said, the track is still wet. They still have to stay out on the wet tires for as long as possible until the spray disappears from underneath these cars. It's not safe to switch back to the slicks just yet. Gael Valero in the wet there, using the weather to his advantage, extending the gap to almost 10 seconds. It will be pretty safe when he decides to hit for those slick tires. Back on track, battle between Pedro Zuba and Toby Soriano hasn't let up over the past couple of laps right now. We're less than halfway through, and Toby Soriano, he's got the run. He's trying to pull up alongside, but it is a right-hander, and Pedro Zuba has the inside. But Toby Soriano has the speed, makes the pass happen. Will he be able to close the door on Pedro Zuba and prevent a counterattack? Looks like it so far. They are pulling alongside side by side. This is a drag race through the next corner. Toby Soriano very late on the race with Pedro Zuba there and makes the pass. Hit this time around. Pedro Zuba really just caught them.
So there we go. Finally, we have Toby Soriano forcing the issue, able to take that 2nd place, and that was a great shot of those drivers right there. So now we'll have to see, as we know, Pedro Zuba really looking to take it back. But again, these guys battling it out have left another couple of seconds, so nearly 10 seconds for Gael Valero to take the lead. Of course, all of these drivers towards the front of the pack. So far, they have only all taken 1 pit stop. So I think, again, right now we're going to have to wait on the weather, really. I think that's where everyone is at to see when they're going to hit the pits once again. But here we see an incident from Juan Blanat. Picture-in-picture replay as he just got into the back of Pedro Dean right there. Came in super fast, tried to get in late on the brakes, and unfortunately just did not stop in time. So Juan Blanat, that might just be, I want to say that might be his race. Is, not too much damage going on there, but definitely he's going to have to make all that time back up. And here we see Pedro Dean still holding on to 5th place pretty well. About a 12-second gap between him and Simon Demori in 4th. But here we go, now having to fight off Josh Perween. So Josh Perween trying to take advantage of that. Like we said, could have ended up a lot worse for Pedro Dean when he got hit.
Yeah, and I think Juan Blanat just ended up locking up his brakes, braking super late there, and also stamping hard on the brakes to try and make sure he can hit the corner. Ended up crashing into the back of Pedro Dean, but he was the only victim in that particular exchange. Pedro Dean staying safe, but now he has to contend with Josh Perween, another battle on his hand. Guy can't catch a break at all here, but Josh Perween, face of steely determination there, trying to make sure he can make it past Pedro Dean.
Yeah, and seeing at this point, really rooting for Pedro Dean to come out here. We got to see him, last season, of course, in AMX20 as well. It seems like he's been doing pretty well so far out here today. Just a couple of unlucky incidents, and really out there, definitely that's what it comes down to during endurance racing. A lot of this is driver skill, but unfortunately at sometimes it's just about luck. Got to see plenty of stuff going on for the Indy 6-hour special event. There's a lot of unlucky moments out there that, drivers just trying to be a bit aggressive and unfortunately end up going into the rear of someone else. But here we can see as the spray still getting Josh Perween. He's out there, the only driver in that pack, having to really keep his wipers on. That's one of the hardest things to do out here in the rain, is once you get behind a driver, you're trying to hold on to them, trying to stay close, but just manage that spray is definitely one of those things that's hard to do out here. So Josh Perween doing a great job, is now closing that gap ever so slightly right on the rear bumper of Pedro Dean, but doesn't want to see what happened exactly with Juan Blanat earlier on, so he backs off just a little bit. Pedro Dean now still feeling the pressure.
And to the comments are asking, when the track dries up, will they have to change tires again? Yes, they will have to, because on wet tires on the dry track, they will disintegrate very, very quickly. In fact, they probably won't even last a couple of laps before the tires go completely. So they'll have to switch as soon as they feel like the track is dry enough. They'll take their second batch off, switch on the tires, and then go back out on the track. But before that happens, the track is still very, very wet. You see the battles here, still relatively lower pace compared to when the track is dry. Pedro Dean there struggling to keep the Hurricane under control. Josh Berwin still breathing down his neck as well. You see, every corner that Pedro Dean takes, Josh Berwin knows how late he can brake and closes that gap ever so slightly.
And I seen someone out there saying they should get on the hard tires. So unfortunately out here for the GT3 cars in iRacing, you pretty much only have two compounds. Everyone out here running the same tire. You got your dries and your wets, and that's about it. So, which, like we said, that would really be interesting. I know some of the other classes, such as IndyCar, the F1 cars, there are other car classes out here that you can have different multiple compounds of tires. That'd be great if iRacing was able to bring that over to other things. So, I mean, again, just strategy, and who knows, because for future seasons, what other car classes we might have in here. I know a lot of people loving the sports car racing, but a lot of people also love the open wheel racing. So we'll have to see, as like we said, but we're still at the very beginning of the season. Like, we are out here, race number 1 of AMX 15 for the season, the inaugural races. Ooh, right there, looking to the inside, we got Josh Perween now side by side with Pedro Dean, able to make the move. So far, it's looking like he's going to make it stick right here. He is. He gets braking a little bit later and going into that right-hander. So great move by Josh Perween.
Yeah, what a statement from him, making the pass onto Pedro Dean look almost effortless. But Nico Verbicki also behind Pedro Dean there. The battle between these two drivers has slowed them down enough to the point where Nico here is the next person in line to try and mount an offensive onto Pedro Dean. Then this man cannot catch a break, as I said before. First he had to fend off one not. Then it was Josh Perwin, and now Nico Vesbicki on the back, who almost careened into the rear of Pedro Dean's car here, but managed to keep the save at the end. However, Pedro Dean, eyes up front, looking for this opportunity to get one up over Josh Perwin and see if he can make that pass, that counter pass back.
So of course we got to see earlier on Nico Wierzbicki towards the front of the pack, since now all the way down to 7th place. So he definitely has pretty good pace out here going on track. We'll have to see if he's able to do it. We know Juan Blanat was one of those drivers as well that had amazing pace. Of course, your top qualifier out here today. But here we go. Pedro Dean holding on to 6th place now. Josh Perween looking to close the gap. He has to make up 12 seconds over this next season. Oh, there he goes. As soon as we say how good he's doing, he gets loose, spinning off track, making it back on. So Josh Perween, that could have ended up a lot worse as he barely slid into the track. We might have to see a replay of that one, man. That might be the save of the day.
Yeah, definitely. Pedro Dean trying to avoid another incident happening to him. And in fact, we were talking about him quite a lot last season, where he ended up being the unfortunate collateral of a bunch of incidents that really didn't involve him in the first place. He just got taken out by a bunch of other cars. Relatively unfortunate season for him. Hopefully he'll be able to turn the tides this time around, as he's still holding on to that P6 for the time being. Nico Vesbicki also trying to mount an offensive, and just behind him, of course, is Belziti, trying to make this a 4-way battle for P5. Josh Perwin, however, is running away with the lead a little bit. Here comes Nico, tries to dive in on the inside, but he's not close enough to really make that pass happen. And Pedro Dean there doing a very good job of defending himself, still able to keep him at bay.
And Nico Wierzbicki gonna have to be careful whenever he tries to make that move again. Oh, the rear end getting loose from him, so now he's gonna have to stop, let the guys back on. And there we see Juan Blanat over Nico Wierzbicki dropping back down into 9th place after that short half spin. So he's doing such a great job, but like we said, the track is still pretty wet out here. These guys are trying to make up lap time as they go, but Nico Wierzbicki just trying to push it a little bit too hard, gets sent towards the back. But here, now leaving Pedro Dean in 8th place. Juan Blanat able to take advantage there, up to 7th place. Fabrizio Balziti as well. So in the midst of all that chaos, a couple of drivers able to get past Pedro Dean. Josh Perween still holding on to that 5th place. The gap has increased from 11 seconds to 13 seconds. And now Gael Valero, who had about an 8-second gap earlier on, and we see the picture-in-picture Ooh, that's a great move. We see right there Josh Berween going full Tokyo drift out there on the track, getting sideways off into the grass. Luckily, the car was straight enough when he went to the grass that he didn't go into a full spin, and the track was turning that way as well. So great save right there. But like I was saying, Gael Valero, the gap was 8 seconds, now down to 6. Toby Soriano having great pace as the track continues to dry up. Both of those drivers will still have to take their second pit stop. We only have about 2 drivers out there, 3 drivers have been in the pits 3 times. So unfortunately, Alberto Senao, who is still sitting in the pits, got a bit of damage earlier on in that Lamborghini and is now, you know, that might just be his race out there. Of course, there is always heat number 2, which is going to be a sprint race of 30 minutes. So these guys out here, people saying Audi doing Audi things. Yeah, we have seen the Audis being very fast in the dry, but once these guys have been out in the wet, a couple of spins, couple half spins, make things a bit dangerous. But Gael Valero running his race, definitely no pressure at all in the world. Although that gap is closed by 2 seconds, he knows, all right, we're about halfway through this race. I still have 1 more pit stop to go. All I got to do is just be out here, do what I got to do, run my own race, and don't look back.
Yeah, he can definitely feel the freedom, let go of his pace a little bit, but probably might need to start worrying about it. Toby Soriano is closing the gap by about half a second to 7/10 of a second per lap, and with 34 laps remaining, that just needed quite a bit of time for him to catch back up. In fact, the gap now less than 6 seconds. Toby Soriano, man on fire here, charging his way back up to the front, and here is the incident with Nico Vesbicki here. See what happens as he goes into the move with Pedro Dean again. Shots into the back of Pedro Dean's car. The rear end of Pedro Dean's really is a magnet for these drivers here. Juan Not first, Nico Vesbicki second. And it's surprising that he really didn't suffer any nasty damage to the rear end of his Huracan there. A testament to the durability of these GT3 cars. They can take quite a beating before they really suffer the consequences.
Yeah, and just like I was saying earlier, I mean, Pedro Dean probably the most unlucky driver out here so far today. Just time and time again, people just keep rear-ending him, and just, I mean, still, for how many times he's gotten hit, he's still doing a pretty decent job at not losing it, but still that has put him all the way down into 8th place currently. And here we see Simon Demori in 4th place, still holding off Peter Zuba in 3rd, Toby Soriano in 2nd. So right now, Simon Demori starting to slowly catch up to Peter Zuba, and I think we're going to have a great battle on our hands between these 2 guys right here again.
Oh no! Oh, what was, I think that was the car of Simon Demori. You said, a little bit of commentator's credits there is Simon Demori. You said less than 6/10 of a second separating them, and then immediately he just lost grip on the rear end of his car and ended up sliding off. Managing to recover, however, though he's got to make that gap back up all the way again.
Yeah, I guess I'm just gonna have to stop commenting on how good some of these drivers are doing, because that's already, I think that's been twice so far. Twice so far during this race I've said, hey man, this guy's doing so good, and then continues to go off track. So like I said, again though, he did save it, so he's able to hold on to that 4th place position. A lot of these drivers now starting to spread out just a little bit. Looking at the sun, it looks like the sun's setting just a little bit out there too. So definitely the track temps are cool. It's about 23 degrees out there. The track temps are colder than the air. So track's only 22 degrees, the air is 23 degrees. But like I said, with all that rain that is still sitting on the track, a lot of these drivers, we'll have to see. You're probably going to wait, you know, you said earlier, lap 32. So unfortunately, that prediction has not came true. Everyone is still out on the wets. I'm really surprised how long it's taking for this track to dry up. But like we said, if it were around noon in the simulator, then that would be a lot different. So with it being looking like it's more towards evening, kind of getting that nice orange glow in the sky, these guys will probably be having to race out on these wets probably the rest of the track, the rest of the race out here.
Yeah, with how low the temperatures are, it will take a while before the track actually dries up and opens up the avenue for these drivers to get back onto the dry tires. And probably not here, back on the grind, charging his way again up to the front. See if he can reclaim the positions that he lost after rear-ending Pedro Dean there. Currently behind LZD, it's about half a second between them. Velocity actually going really hard on that brake there. Keeping upon playing out the confidence, charge on ahead, and immediately pick out 4/10 of that gap away. Now back on the rear end of Velocity. See if he can make it through him this time around without incident. And you can see the opposing cam here of Velocity. Well, it's probably not on camera right now. Just looking how concentrated he is and trying to make sure he keeps the car under control. Also trying to look for an avenue to make that pass happen. And so far, these are the only two cars on the grid that are really, really close to one another right now. So you can see how spaced out the rest of the grid is at least a second for all of these cars. While the gap between Toby Soriano and Kyle Valero is ever narrowing, was up 5 seconds, a couple laps ago, now down to 4.5, and really, I think Kyle Valero might have to start worrying just a little bit.
So just like that, yep, the gap's nearly cut in half from about 10 laps ago. So like we said, just halfway through here, 51 minutes in so far. We'll have to see where these guys slotted out. Toby Soriano now 4 seconds back. Peter Zuba about 4.5 seconds behind him in third place. And Simon Demori about 5.5 seconds. So right now, I mean, it would change up a lot if we had a completely dry track. But as we can see just from some of these boards, the spray is starting to get less and less. So although it is drying very slow out here. I mean, at this point, once you start seeing the spray kind of ease off from the rear end of these cars, at that point, we may have some people start going back into the pits. As we can see, the racing line still has a lot of rubber laid down on it so far. So definitely going to be interesting if anyone tries to go for the undercuts, get back on the dry tires, and then head back out there, try to improve their lap time. So we see though, however, Toby Soriano, Peter Zuba now sectors 2 and 3, gaining speed, gaining time over Gael Valero. So I think right now, Gael Valero might start thinking, all right, when am I going to go into the pits? Another big thing to keep in mind is all of these guys, they may have to hit the pits and refuel. Not sure if anyone fueled up at all whenever they went in for their wet tires.
Yeah, I'm wondering if all these drivers came in with a full tank and exactly how long that full tank will last them over the course of this entire race. I have to be aware of that. We might see the next pit stop that these drivers take a little longer than normal, because they will have to top up. But that is, of course, conjecture. We're not really sure whether or not that will be the case until we see them make their pit stops. Meanwhile, Gael Valero, this gap that he is so painstakingly crafted up to 10 seconds in order to give him a buffer for his next pit stop, completely demolished by Toby Soriano here. While he's pulling away from Peter Zuba, he's closing the gap between him and Gael Valero. Right now, almost down to just 3 seconds. He can see Gael Valero in his view right now, and you can see that on camera. The spray being kicked up on Gael Valero's car is not that far off.
So out here, I mean, still pretty good pace. These guys starting to catch up just a little bit, starting to push a little bit more. And I don't know if this is the point. Of course, Gael Valero is still not worried at all, has plenty of room out there on the track all to himself. But you got to make that wonder if, hey, once you start seeing someone in your rear view mirror, is that going to make you start to push just a little bit more? And looking as we're on board with Toby Soriano, seen forward ahead of Gael Valero, I'm trying to get a good look at who that might be if he has a back marker on him right now. Which looks like someone just hit the pit, so that might have been Sanao or Jackson Asenje. So got a couple of drivers now hitting the pits. We'll see. It looks like they might be switching it over to the dry tires or just trying to get some more fuel. Let's wait and see once they hit the pits. Jackson Asenje, first driver out there on the dries. Now we'll have to see if that's going to be a good strategy for him. Like we mentioned, seeing a lot of rubber kind of out there. The racing line is starting to dry out from the cars going over it and over and over. Gael Valero. So with only halfway through this, little bit more than halfway through this race, these drivers definitely leaning into the strategy now. A 3-second gap between Gael Valero in first and Toby Soriano in second.
Yeah, and I'm trying to figure out whether or not Toby's going to try and undercut Gael Valero, or whether he realizes that, okay, I don't think these wet tires will last any longer. I'm going to have to pit for these dry tires and then try to make a move on him. And then you have to see whether or not Gael Valero, once he's back on his dry tires, will he be able to increase his pace yet again to widen the gap between him and Toby Soriano, because yeah, as you mentioned before, when you see him in the rearview mirror, you're probably going to start thinking, maybe I should push a little bit harder. But at some point in time, if you keep pushing, you might end up going over a limit and paying for the consequences. But we know Kyle Valero, he's one of the guys who really understands what this car can do here. So I don't think he'll be too worried about that up actually. Prix is still being picked up quite a bit, so I'm not entirely sure whether or not he's going to go in there. Yeah, he sticks out for another lap here. So does Toby Soriano. So as long as this Prix is still being kicked up by the cars there, I think Valero is going to be pretty confident, probably just running his wet tires before he finally switches to dry one.
So now as things start to spread out a little bit there, I'm seeing Pedro Deans trying to catch up to Juan Blanat in the middle of the pack, so the timing's going down further and further. We might have a battle going on for 7th place as these drivers kind of start to spread out a little bit. So here we see Juan Blanat, who got a little bit now. Pedro Dean, not sure if he's going to return the favor. I know he's been getting hit a little bit here and there. I don't think he's going to do it on purpose, but we'll have to see, as now they're trying to turn it up. The gap less than half a second between these two drivers, and just like that, folks, we have another battle starting to ensue on our hands. Lap 36 of 64 out here for our inaugural AMX 15 race. These guys have been doing great all day long. Of course, Juan Blanat trying to be super aggressive. It has come back to bite him a couple times out there. Was the best in qualifying out here, going up and down the grid all day long. So we'll have to see someone out there. Their pick is for Soriano to win this thing. Hey, we've seen him catching Gael Valero, so like we said, they're still both on wets. Anything can happen. But right now, still roughly half a second holding on between Juan Blanat, Pedro Dean. I know Juan Blanat, like we've seen, of course, has had the faster time, but they're in Sector 2. Pedro Dean faster through Sector 2. So, I mean, they're pretty evenly balanced right now with the current track conditions.
Yeah, and Juan Blanat still holding the fastest laps, so regardless of where he finishes on the grid, that fastest lap bonus is still a very, very nice amount for him. $15 for the fastest lap. So he's still going to be pretty happy with that result regardless. I know for a fact that he will definitely want to be scoring higher. Lest we forget, the amount of money that these drivers win also ends up being the total points that they get for this particular race. So this particular race has a lot more weightage than the second heat. Even if he does win the second heat, definitely won't feel as good as winning this particular heat, especially since you've been out on track for so long.
And I was just looking there at the front of Juan Blanat's vehicle, so the bonnet looks a little bit lopsided there. Not sure if that is still some damage from earlier on, as we can see a little bit of a hood gap there too as well. So I mean, like I said, these GT3s, they can be pretty much tanks out there, and unless you just straight up end into a wall. Well, they can take a little bit of abuse, a little bit of banging and rubbing between vehicles out there. So we'll have to see. Juan Blanat now, still, that's probably the closest gap we have currently. I mean, everyone else spread out by at least 2-3 seconds. I'm not sure if that damage from where we see Juan Blanat earlier with the pace that he had, I'm not sure if the damage to the front end of the vehicle is what's holding him back right now. Instead, Pedro Dean might have a little bit of damage to his rear bumper, but that's not where that front air is hitting you, so it shouldn't be too much of an issue for him right now. So definitely two cars out here battling it out. Both have a little bit of damage. But now looking at what's going on the calendar, of course, the next week we are back with AMX10, our DCR class World Tour, where we are going to be heading it to Italy. And of course, next Saturday we will be out back in the USA, Lime Rock Park in the Formula Vs, as well as Road Atlanta in the Porsche Cup cars. So I know that's going to be a good one out there. We'll see if I'm up in the booth or if I might be out joining that race. We'll have to wait and see. But Lime Rock, definitely one of my favorite parks.
Yeah, definitely been looking forward to that. However, I don't think I will be on duty for that day, so I'm gonna have to just leave it up to you guys to carry that. Regardless, I know definitely for now, the MX15 delivering on all fronts. You get to see these drivers adapt to the ever-changing track conditions here, as well as being able to maintain its concentration all the way until the end. We're still just over halfway through the race. Got about Let me look at live timing for you. Still got about half an hour of racing left to cover. So, still here for a while. Doesn't look like the positions are changing anytime soon, but we definitely have to watch out when these drivers finally enter the pits for their dry tire swap.
Looking out there, Jackson Sanjay still the only driver out with the dry compound. So, like I said, not sure if he might have done that a little bit too early or not, as he's about a minute 20 behind 11th place. Of course, these drivers towards the back of the pack getting into some incidents early on, having a few spin outs, a few crashes. So we'll have to see. Once the other drivers towards the front of the pack, now the sun's starting to come out just a little bit more, and ooh, taking a great line right there, Pedro Dean. But again, right here out with the track still slightly wet, these guys trying to do what they can. The wipers going full blast for Pedro Dean, and like I mentioned earlier, getting all that spray onto your windscreen is not the position that you want to be, making it just that much more difficult to try and get the job done to make the overpass. But here we see lap number 39 out here. Gael Valero still in first place, followed by Toby Soriano in second and Peter Zuba in third. And looking at the calendar here too, our next endurance race going to be out here in the GTPs out at Monza. So GTPs at Monza, always going to be a great time for that one.
Yeah, definitely looking forward to seeing those later on in the month. But for now, Gael Valero, the gap between him and Toby Soriano hasn't really been decreasing since we were talking about how the gap has been shortening. Now it's hovering around 3 seconds. As a matter of fact, Gael Valero is now gaining that gap up to 3.5 seconds between him and Soriano. So I wonder what happened there. He finally decided to pick up the pace, I guess, realizing that Toby Soriano can see him in the rearview mirror. And I think that is, of course, one of our answers as well in the chat right now, giving us a little bit of commentary on the road as well. And yeah, I mean, really have to wait for this particular battle between Pedro Dean and Juan Reina to really take off. Pedro Dean doing his level best to try and stay on the tail of Juan Reina, but haven't really found an opportunity to mount an attack yet.
And looking out here, I mean, we'll have to see how many races we get to see with the rain. Of course, the dynamic weather now. iRacing updating it once again to be introducing spotty rain. So, I mean, right now you can kind of see from the radar for the drivers out there and their teams just when the rain might be coming in, when it's going to be kind of going away. So they have a little bit better idea. But now iRacing is going to be introducing spotty rain. So once they see that out on the forecast, they don't know how much rain's going to be coming down, how much it's not going to be raining, when it's going to start, when it's going to stop. All they'll know is a rough idea. So at least out here, they have a little bit more. Of course, it's always beneficial to have your teammates, have someone out there spotting for you, being crew chief. If you just want to be able to drive out there, have someone possibly being race engineer for you. As we see right there going off track. Not sure what happened if he got to slow down right there, but that leaves a couple positions. So, or if he's just letting the other drivers by. Of course, like we said, we have several back markers out here on track as well. So definitely going to be coming into play, as that looked like that might have been G-Bach back there. So just letting the other guys drive by saying, hey man, I'm just here to finish the race, still get points. But even looking these guys towards the back of the pack right now, even all the way where, let's see, where David G-Bach is currently sitting in 14th place. Hey man, he still at least gets $6 to get back out here. So some of these drivers still trying to finish the race, at least get their entry fees covered. We'll have to wait and see. But like we said, first place getting $90. So as it sits, Gael Valero now finally hitting the pits, followed by Toby Soriano. So these two kind of sticking it out, their strategy. We'll have to see where he comes out. Gael Valero, of course, already hitting the dries, as well as Toby Soriano. Who's going to come out in front? We'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, Pedro Zuba actually deciding to stick out for one more lap. So does Josh Irwin, which they get the overcut onto both Soriano and Valero. And you can see they're sticking the pits for quite a while, popping up on fuel, I wager, in order to make sure they can carry themselves through the end of the race without having to yet again. So now they're both on dry tires, got a lot of time to make up again. There's probably still going to be able to get the overcut on the rest of the drivers once they finally make the pits on dry tires. And on these dry tires, once the track really gets rid of all this spray, it definitely has space to open up and really catch up in terms of pace. But the battle between Toby Soriano and Gael Valero heating up now. That was 3 seconds between these three cars, these two cars earlier. Now it's down to about 1.5 as Juan Reynard still under pressure for Pedrodin here. And Pedrodin looking like he might try and dive on the inside. No, he brakes a little bit earlier than Juan Reynard. Juan Reynard knows exactly how late he can brake to make that turn and still stay ahead. Pedrodin just trying to make sure he catches up and stays caught up.
And right here, I mean, we'll have to see with these two battling it out. Are they going to keep on staying out on track, or are they going to go and hit the pits? Like I said, I think right now for Pedrodin, if he's confident that the track is dry enough and he's still out here getting, the battle, but he looks to the inside slightly, it's still not really a great move for overtake, as we can see a little bit wet right there. So these drivers can't be as aggressive as they want to be. And a little bit of almost looked like contact there towards the end. Both of those drivers getting a little bit squirrely coming out of that last corner, as now we go into the final hairpin. Is either of these drivers going to hit the pits? It looks like not. They're going to both stay out on track. So definitely the battle will ensue. Josh Perween still up in first place. Fabrizio Balziti second, Juan Blenat in third. So the drivers that are staying out on the wet tires, like we said, it might be still cool enough that these tires aren't going to degrade too fast. Of course, the track temp still about 20 degrees Celsius, so track temps are still staying pretty cool out here. I'm not sure if that's going to pay off, but again, 2 mandatory pit stops, so the guys in the top 5 will have to pit no matter what.
Yeah, really looking forward to seeing how it goes here, and whether or not Valero will be able to keep up and get the pass back into the lead once these drivers finally make their pits. As Juan Blenat, a rare unforced error from him, gives Pedrodin the opportunity to make the pass happen, and Pedrodin immediately seizes the opportunity. Really, you can see as we're in this late stage of the race, the concentration has to be on point, as simple lapse in judgment and unforced error in a minute area will end up costing you big time here.
I see some people out there still having fun in the Twitch chat too. So, of course, some of you guys we got to see yesterday out here. Some great races going on yesterday. AMX 0, AMX 5. Like I said, we'll be back in the USA next weekend for those. So, of anyone that wants to get involved, AMX 0 is open to everyone, including some of the base content. Like we said, Formula V's out at Lime Rock Park. Going to be a fun one. I know plenty of people, that is where they start off in iRacing. You see it plenty all the time. One of my favorite tracks, and shortly followed that, Road Atlanta in the Porsche 911 GT3 Cup cars. Anytime we have the GT3 Cup cars out here at AMX, it always brings out some of the best drivers. So we'll have to see who shows up for that as well. No special events going on in the meantime. So like I said, we have quite a few people out here on track, but hopefully, I know the Porsche Cup cars always makes for a great time on a great track. One of the best tracks, I'd say, suited for that car in the US.
Yeah, definitely. And for those of you in chat, just have to make sure to understand my name does not have a MoveBot command, so don't even try, brothers. But coming back onto the race section here, as Juan Blenat really is struggling for grip, and Nico Vesbicki is the second one to try and make an attempt onto Juan Blenat's position here. I get the feeling that Juan Blenat is realizing that, okay, maybe I really do have to come into the pit time and get that tire swap, because he is kind of losing it at the exits of all these corners as he's applying the throttle. So Nico Vesbicki, really close to the rear end there. I was kind of scared that he might just rear end Juan Blenat. And you can see just how much rubber is on the track right now being laid down by these tires. They are disintegrating rapidly, and the spray is already going away. So pretty much if they don't pit this lap, I don't think these tires will last another lap.
Yeah, next out there too. Everyone, they've found the joys of MoveBot. So I love seeing out there. Hey, who knows? We might have to put some custom commands in there. Have a little Easter eggs here and there during the races. Plenty of things, but here we go as more people hitting the pits now, getting back onto the dry tires. Of course, the dries out here, these guys might have been the thing to do. The dry line, people out here saying the dry line OP definitely is OP. Like we said, still a little bit of spray from some of these drivers, but the other good thing, the more that these drivers go across the track, the drier it becomes. So you can just see the contrast right there on the tracks. Now we're getting to the beautiful golden hour out here at Donington Park Raceway. So Simon Demori now also getting up into 8th place. So we still have our top 4 drivers yet to take their pit stop. I think right now it's going to be a battle of, all right, where are my tires at? How is the car feeling? And how confident am I that I can get back out here? But as the battle goes on, Nico Wierzbicki now in 4th place, trying to best Juan Blanat. So right here, these guys battling it out once again. We got to see them early on in heat number 1 out here, doing a great job battling. Of course, both of them have had a couple of small incidents out here, which shot them back all the way to the pack. So I think right now, both of them are going to really stay out here as long as they can on these wets, really try to make up all of that pace that they lost early on in the race.
I feel like it's a little bit of a ballsy move to stay on the west for so long. Nico already suffering the consequences of that. He just didn't have any grip coming into that hairpin there and just loses so much time on the exit. You have to be really, really careful when it comes to this. Once you're off the dry line, and especially the fact that it's so wet, being off the dry line pretty much guarantees that you will lose all the grip you have. And he's realizing this now. He's back in the pits, 1 play 9. And Josh Berwin are still out on track on the wet. I don't know how long they'll stay there, but they have to go back into the pits eventually. Otherwise, those tires are going to just go.
And there we see, so Nico, of course, hitting the pits. Fabrizio Belziti going in right behind him. We'll have to see what the strategy is here. I think, really right there, Nico Wierzbicki just testing the grip out on the track, really not wanting to battle it off too much more with Juan Blanat, saying, all right, it's time to get back in the pits, trying to get my dry tires. I think I can get a little bit faster out here. As now Gael Valero, who's still holding on to the lead, 2 pit stops and is back on the dry tires. So now this is going to be where things will have to look out. Gael Valero, Toby Soriano, and Peter Zuba, of course, were leading on earlier in the race. So once these guys ahead of them, only a 2-second gap between Gael Valero, Juan Blanat, a 9-second gap. Josh Perwin still trying to get as much of a gap ahead in first place. But once they hit the pit stops, expect Gael Valero to resume first place.
Yeah, and we're going to have to keep an eye on Juan Blanat here. He is less than 2 seconds ahead of Gael Valero. That means Gael Valero has him in his sights. And you can see just exactly the difference in pace between the dry and the wet tires here, especially wet tires that are almost as short as Juan Blanat's is. And coming out to the hairpin before the blue cross straight is Juan Blanat finally. Yes, he is. He's finally going into the pits this time around. So is Josh Bowen. Gael Valero cinching the pole position yet again, holding on to that lead. Toby Soriano back in second. Perez Cooper back in third. So now Hill has resumed to its original ending, and Gael Valero, he's going to have to hold on to this lead all the way until the very end. We are almost approaching. As a matter of fact, we have reached. No, we haven't. My math is really wrong. We're 2 laps away from the final quarter of the race, and really all the quarter.
So out here, I see a lot of people talking about the 720S with Gael Valero. Of course, a great driver, putting him out here in a great car. It's paid off for him so far. I have no doubt that pretty much whatever Gael Valero is in, he is going to do a great job in. But being out here in the 720S, honestly, this is making me want to go out there and get this for myself, really test drive this car, see how it feels. I know, of course, so far, very balanced car. Gael Valero being able to take advantage of it out here in the beautiful Duckhams oil livery. One that we don't see too much out here. So that's a very specific one. We end up catching up why he chose that livery. But nonetheless, not the normal Apex Racing livery. I'm sure that his team will get one out there pretty soon for that car if they're able to dominate like this in races moving forward. But now we have Nico Wierzbicki currently down to 9th place on the dry tires. He caught right back up to Juan Blanat, who Juan Blanat, of course, like we've seen, opted to stay out on the wets. That might have been a mistake. At this point, his tires might be overheating, and he's just starting to lose pace, lose grip out here.
Wait a second. Juan Blanat actually did go into the pits just now, right? But didn't walk tires?
Yeah, no, I see what you're saying, Damon. Yeah, both of them do have 2 pit stops registered. That slipped my mind. He did go into the pits. He opted, I I guess, I don't know if he forgot to change to the tries. I'm sure that is what happened. But right now we can see, though, he's going to leave plenty of opportunity. Juan Blenot still holding on to that position. But as the track continues to dry, he's going to leave plenty of space for Nikodem Verzbisky to make that move.
Yeah, positive decision for Juan Blenot to stay on the wets here. Maybe he's got the foresight that the rest of us don't have. We'll end up reading again for final 2 laps of the race. Although time will we have to wait and the time tells us whether or not we make the correct decision. So far, definitely feels a little bit confusing. But as long as he has the pace, I think he'll be okay with it. For the time being, is probably not still fending off Nico Verzbicki just behind him. Less than a second separating these cars from each other. And meanwhile, Toby Soriano actually got the drop onto Guy Valero there. I don't know what happened. People can get a replay on that, but Guy Valero all of a sudden 2 seconds behind Toby Soriano.
Yeah, so just like that, I mean, what we've seen, I said I was going to stop bragging about the drivers, and I didn't, and look what happens. So, once again, I'm not sure if that counts as commentator's curse, but we'll have to see, because like I said, both of these drivers still very good out here. Toby Soriano, Guy Valero. I know, as right now the intensity is about to get heated up from Guy Valero as we go into the full screen replay to catch up exactly what led to that incident right here. So you see Guy Valero coming out here, still holding on pretty strong going into this right-hander, but then, again, just gets onto the brakes a little bit too hard. So I think right there he just locked up going into that corner and unfortunately spun off. Again, luckily that didn't end up as bad as it was. So although he got into the gravel, trying to get back on track before Toby Soriano, but Soriano taking advantage of it. So right there, those hairpins still showing that they're just as dangerous as they were earlier on.
Yeah, very unfortunate for Guy Valero that he was I can't find the words anymore. He was in the zone for almost the 3/4 of the entire race as we now approach the final quarter there. Unforced error from Guy Valero allowing Toby Soriano to capitalize on it and make that temporary point. Guy Valero is not out of the woods yet. We have 6 laps remaining and Guy Valero is slowly but surely closing the gap yet again. So we might end up seeing a final lap battle between these 2 cars as they approach the end. However, the rest of the cars at the back of the grid, Nico Verzbicki, the gap between him and Juan Blenot even shorter now than it was last lap, half a second separating these cars. But Juan Blenot presently pretty quick on his perfect pace, despite still sticking out with wet.
And so here we see now Toby Soriano knowing that he has plenty of clean air in front of him. But like we said, folks, only lap 49 out of 64 laps today in heat number 1. So we still have roughly, I'd say, just over 20 minutes to go out here, or I guess probably roughly 15 minutes to go. So we'll see Toby Soriano, Guy Valero now already trying to get the pace back up. So we can see through Sector 1, Valero just a little bit faster, a little bit slower through Sector 2. And oh no, Josh Perween right there. So we got Fabrizio Balziti getting into an incident. Definitely gonna have to get a replay on that one, Damon.
Yeah, we saw the live cam in the picture there. Just another one. Immediately, Josh Perween careens to the side of Fabrizio Balziti. He just recovered from an incident and now he's getting into another one. This guy, another one joining pit underneath the news of unlucky participants of racing incidents. Josh Perween not going to be too happy with that as he ends up losing there.
And that, I mean, the racing stewards might have something to say about that one. They're going to have fun out here. That's all I can say about that. So whether or not these are intentional, we'd have to really see. I think a lot of these, again, it's still these guys are back out here on the dry tires trying to push it like the track is completely dry. But once again, there's still quite a few wet spots on here. The racing line is very narrow from where these drivers have been going over and over. And right here, back to the lead for Toby Soriano now, just under 2 seconds. Valero, Sector 1, once again being faster than Soriano through there. We'll have to see as the Sector 2 comes up. Of course, Guy Valero last time around was a little bit slower, and once again, still a little bit slower through Sector 2. So Valero just having a little bit of trouble in Sector 2 out here. But here we go to full screen replay to see what happened early on. So right there, it looks like Simon Demori and Fabrizio Balziti. So Ooh, just there, not sure if there was a little bit of contact, but of course Simon Demori just a little bit slower. Balziti going in a little hot into that corner, unfortunately spinning out, trying to recover back on track. And then there we can see in the background, Josh Perween, unfortunately, once he gets back on track, here we see it on the left. Here we go, trying to get a little bit wide, holding on to that, trying to make a move, but man, just right there, I think he touched the curbing, and still that curbing is still pretty wet. Once you hit that, man, it is just all over. Of course, Balziti trying to do his best to save it from there. Josh Perween going off track.
Yeah, he did a pretty good job recovering after that. Maybe Fabrizio will be counting his lucky stars that he didn't end up in a worse position than he already has. But up into P4 now is Fabrizio Balziti. Simon Demori that really dropped down to P5. So a pretty good spot for him, all things considered. Petrotin's still in that P6 position, hasn't moved it in since he got back out of the pits earlier on. Toby Soriano and Guy Valero, this battle really trying to keep up right now. Guy Valero doing his best to close the gap between him and Soriano, but it just looks like he's... Oh, I see that back. He lost a lot of time in the second sector, but now he's speeding all back up. So the gap between them, it's less than 1.7 seconds now. So Guy Valero really is trying to put on the pressure. Soriano knows it.
It's out here with about 13 laps left in this race. Definitely Gael Valero going to be pushing it as hard as he can. I mean, that plays to the back of your mind just a little bit, not to push it too much, as we see Gael Valero get that spin out earlier on. So he knows just where the limit of grip is. I think he's finally found it out here, gotten very comfortable. Toby Soriano, of course, we saw a lot of people out there in chat loving the Pokemon livery on his vehicle. Definitely having some fun out here with the liveries. And pretty much most of the drivers, although a lot of them in their team liveries, a lot of them out here, as we can still see it through the sector timing. Gael Valero, through the majority of the track, is making up time slowly on Toby Soriano. So right here, I'm not sure. Again, a lot of this comes down to just that mental game. Hey, you're in front, you're in the lead, but you definitely have to keep pushing. Do not be letting up, as the track is still drying. Right now, temps outside about 23.5 degrees, and the track temps starting to finally warm up. About 20.5 degrees out there. So although it's only warmed up about half a degree, it's still starting to warm up, starting to dry out a little bit more. So here we can see everyone out there having some fun in the chat as well. Lap number 52. Everyone, let's see. I mean, we've seen people earlier making their predictions. Some people saying Valero, some people saying it's NJ. At this point on in the race, Damon, I mean, really, these are our top two. I said someone from the middle of the pack might be winning it out here today, and Toby Soriano just might be that person to make that prediction come true.
Well, if you really think about it, I think Guy Valero was kind of part of that mid-pack as well, so either way, it would still be true regardless, but Toby Soriano is still trying to hold on to that lead. That gap is ever so slightly narrowing, now less than 1.5 seconds separating cars with about 12 laps left to go. It is only just a matter of time before we have bumper-to-bumper action at the tail end of this race.
And just a quick fun fact about the track out here as well. So Donington Park was also used as a military vehicle depot back during World War II. So one of the many World War II bases that have since been turned into racing parks. I know that's very common. Seen that a lot in the UK, of course. Living in the US, the big one that comes to my mind is out at Sebring International Raceway. So definitely great to see one of the most popular UK racing tracks out here as well. So glad to see what these drivers have been able to do on it. Of course, that lovely UK weather out here, the rain going in, the gray cloudy skies covering it. And here we see now Juan Blanat still trying to make up room, but Toby Soriano holding it off, as Gael Valero still holding on about just over a second gap between these two drivers. So I mean, really, every time we see the sector times pop up, Valero is only hundredths of a second faster. So he has about just over 10 laps to really reel that in. Once he gets in the draft, I think that's where things will really become interesting.
Yeah, definitely, and it looks like that moment might come sooner rather than later, as Guy Valero just edging out the gap to slightly under a second earlier on before Toby Soriano pulled away at the end of that corner. But again, yeah, as you mentioned before, the second times all green for Valero, which means he's taking up the Delta very, very quickly. And that's for that last bit. I don't like it when I talk to try and prove a point and then they immediately prove a point wrong here, but that's just racing for you guys. Valero still about second, 10 laps remaining in this entire 90-minute affair. Almost about to come ahead here. Valero going to be hunting down. He really wants that $90.
And here we can see people, so just keep in mind, I mean, out here in heat number 1, the points are tripled from qualifying as well as heat number 2. So $90 going to first place, $60 going to second. Right there, a $30 difference just between first and second place. So although I know a lot of these drivers, they love the prize money, but at the end of the day, I think they're just out here to win it because that's what racing drivers do. Of course, Gael Valero looking to have yet another championship, yet Toby Soriano as well trying to come out here, put things down. I know last season we got to see quite a few people from AMX20 that so far have not been out here today. The likes of David Toth, the last season's championship winner for the AMX20, coming not out here this season. So we'll have to say exactly how this goes. Toby Soriano looking like he has a pretty good shot, but like we said, Gael Valero just under second. Once he hits that draft, is going to make it interesting, although it's going to make it very, very difficult to overtake as parts of the track are still a little bit dry. So I think right now, Toby Soriano, he just has to keep running his race, keep it perfect, not make any mistakes, and he definitely can be walking out of here a winner in heat number 1.
Oh, and it looks like Belziti is actually out of the race. I wonder what happened there. Not sure if you might get a replay on that because it seemed like a particularly isolated incident. But we're going to have to redirect our focus back to this battle in front. As you can see, Toby Soriano getting really aggressive on the way he attacks the corners now, but trying to pick off Gael Valero to no avail. He is just hunting him down right now, and the sector times are still all in Valero's favor. The gap now less than 0.8 of a second between these two drivers. 9 laps remaining in the race right now. So, the way this battle is going, we probably will see a fierce battle all the way to the end.
So definitely, we know it was going to come down to the last few laps. We didn't know it was going to be like this. Gael Valero, Toby Soriano, who is going to come out victorious? We have less than 10 laps to solve that. Once again, folks, everyone out there, definitely, yeah, we've seen some people out there talking about AMX Zero early on, saying how much does AMX Zero cost? It is absolutely free to everyone. We include the base content of iRacing. That way we can have a lot of people, whether you are an iRacing veteran, you're new to sim racing, that is a great place to get started. I hop in there from time to time. You know, not the best racer, I'd say. I'm pretty much a rookie still out here, especially compared to a lot of these guys that are crazy high iRating. But even though, hey, we've been able to battle against some of the best. I know the best feeling is when you see some of these guys out in front of you that are a way higher iRating, make a mistake, and you're able to pass them. That's one of the best feelings in the world. But nonetheless, I've been able to just learn a lot from racing against some of these guys, watching these guys, to the point now of I've started getting on a team myself and start doing some of these endurance races. So great job, great love from all the community around here as well. See you guys out there in chat, showing up week after week, the same drivers showing up week after week. This season we've had a couple of new faces as well. So like I always say, the more the merrier. If you want to get back involved in this too, like I said, make sure to head over to amxrace.com as well as see the full schedule. Look at the schedule out here. There are a few American races that I'm very excited about in the future as well.
Yeah, and getting better. Words, English is hard. Getting better through competition is really what AMX is all about. You want to be able to improve your racecraft, really elevate your skill to the next level. You want to be part of AMX here. Get racing with some of the best cream of the crop in terms of drivers. And speaking of cream of the crop, of course, we have top 2 right now is Gael Valero and Toby Soriano. Gael Valero is going to try his best to get into the slipstream of Soriano here. 7 laps remaining in Heat 1. Ladies and gentlemen, we are almost approaching the end of this 90-minute excursion, and Gael Valero looking to see if he can make this the biggest win of the night for him. Once it comes into Heat 2, the stakes are a little bit lower than they are here, but again, still very important to play for.
And I'm loving the onboard shot right here. You just really start getting a sense of speed of how much these drivers are actually pushing it. So from some of the other camera angles, it looks like, hey, they might not be going that fast, but once you get onto the onboard out here, you can really just see how quick these guys are taking it around the track in the GT3. So I think sometimes we lose a little bit of focus of just how insane these guys are. I mean, for being still a GT car, definitely right now kind of the top, of course, outside of the GTPs. Definitely, but those ones, hey, once you start getting to the hypercars, those are another beast themselves. But from production homologated vehicles out here onto a race car, these guys definitely showing why this is one of the most popular car classes. As Gael Valero now able to make it right onto the rear bumper of Toby Soriano. So still about 7/10 off, but he's letting him know, put that pressure on. We are almost here as we're now down to the last couple minutes out here in this race. We'll have to see where it's going to come down to. It's now or never for Gael Valero. He only has maybe a couple laps to make it happen.
Yeah, and really has to try and make it happen sooner rather than later. But the sooner he mounts his attack, the more time he has to defend. And as mentioned before, the timer switched from a lap counter to a time counter. So immediately, 7 laps turned down to 2 minutes means you only have 2 laps at most in order to make this attack happen. And Valero is not closing the gap as quickly as he would like right now. Oh, closing it by hundredths of a second each time. Not enough. He really has to buckle down.
And this is where things gets good as the gap is now down to half a second. So Gael Valero getting faster and faster, like we said, putting that pressure on Toby Soriano. Toby Soriano feeling the heat from Gael Valero. We'll have to see everyone out there in chat. This is what it is all about. Let's get some hype going for these guys. Toby Soriano, Gael Valero. We've seen some people make a prediction. So this is going to see whether or not set the precedent for AMX 15 of the season. Like I mentioned when we were out in AMX 10 last weekend, you want to be able to start getting that momentum. So this momentum would be great for either of these drivers being up on the top, as now we are going still. No white flag out just yet, but these guys getting very close to the counter of the end of the race. Like we said, folks, 90 minutes has flown by. Where has it gone? As now we are back into the final stretch. These guys a minute 32 out here. Toby Soriano, Gael Valero, Peter Zuba, your top 3. But it is all about these top 2 right here. Nearly the last half of the race, once they got back out of their second pit stop, have been continuing to battle it off.
5 seconds till the end of the race timer here as we are just pressing it over. Yeah, 133, there it is. And now it really is coming to a head that Gael Valero really got to buck up and make sure he gets his pass happening. This is $30 separating P1 and P2, and that's 30 points you definitely don't want to be missing out on, especially when they count for so much here. And Gael Valero still holding on, still trying to catch up. Yep, not decreasing at any point right now. Toby Soriano might look like he'll be the clincher for this Heat 1 victory. And I'm not entirely sure if the checkered flag will be flying down as they cross the finish line. We'll have to wait and see. But Gael Valero there, they're waiting. They're mounting in the back. Oh, Toby Soriano going in. Keep that line tight in order to win. Gael Valero is running out of opportunity. He's running out of time. He's running out of chances. What are the odds? He goes in for the dive on the outside, but he overlooks it, locks up the race, enters the wet line, and immediately the assault completely fails. And Toby Soriano crossing the finish line in first place. What an amazing view all the way to the end from Toby Soriano. And Gael Valero, he definitely tried at the very end there, but he just couldn't make it happen. As you saw on the player cam, Toby Soriano really animated in his victory.
So just like that, so huge congratulations out to Toby Soriano, able to best Gael Valero. It came down to the last final few laps. Gael Valero trying to reel him in, but unfortunately for him, it just was not enough. Came down to the final corner, tried to go a bit wide, but the track was still a little bit too wet right there on some of these lines. So like I said, we knew it was going to be hard to pass, and that came true. Definitely Gael Valero doing his best. He probably would have had this one in the bag, but a few laps ago made one slight mistake once he got back out on the dry tires, and he was trying to play catch up ever since. But here we go as the rest of the drivers, of course, Peter Zuba coming in third, Simon Demori in fourth, Pedro Dean holding on to 5th place, Bruno DeCarmo, Nico Wierzbicki, Josh Berwing. So a lot of these drivers definitely getting shaken up a bit. Quite a few incidents throughout the entire race. I mean, especially once the rain started coming down and then the sun came back out to shine back on to the lovely track out here at Donington Park Raceway. So Damon, an absolute great kickoff for our race. But like we said, people out there, we have one more sprint race coming up after this. So we're gonna have another top 15 reverse grid, but there it is, feeling super relieved. Toby Soriano, your Heat 1 winner, our first AMX Mini Enduro race, coming across with that win. 2nd place going to Gael Valero. 3rd place, Peter Zuba. 4th place, we got Simon Demori. 5th, Pedro Dean. 6th, Bruno DeCarmo. 7th place, Nikodem Wierzbicki. 8th, Josh Perwin. 9th, Juan Blanat. 10th, Ralph Benitez. 11th, Gerard Sardeni. 12th, Fabrizio Belziti. 13th, Jackson Ezenje. 14th, David Gibach. And rounding out in 15th, Alberto Senao. So we'll have to see. I know Senao was in the pits for quite a while, if he's going to make it back on grid for heat number 2. Heat number 2 coming up pretty shortly. And like we said, chat, we love seeing you out here. Let's see if we can make any predictions from now. I'm not going to make any predictions because, like I said, it seems like every time I talk during Heat 1, something happened. So we're going to give these guys a little bit of time to warm up back out on the track. Got about a 5-minute warm up, and then these guys are going to be getting ready to grid.
Yeah, definitely looking forward to seeing that happen, as well as, oh man, we need time to catch our breath as well. What an amazing finish for that 90-minute affair. But here we go, getting ready for Heat 2. Just getting ready for everyone else. You can see they're on track. Warm up a couple of minutes before we get into the next heat. It was time to cool down on our end. Track, not sure if it will dry up by the time the second heat starts, but yeah, I'm trying really hard to find ways to formulate my thoughts, but that last few minutes of the race really kind of got my brain racing, and now I'm trying really hard to slow it down.
So just like that, a few more minutes, folks. Don't go anywhere, as we will be gridding very shortly.
Oh. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are done with the 5-minute warm-up before we get into Heat 2.
So just like that, I mean, we got to see a great heat number 1 coming up out here. So heat number 2, once again, we are having that top 15 reverse grid. And seeing out there people saying a little birdie saying that there might be some rain on the end of next season. We'll just have to wait and see about that. I mean, we have a next session, not next season. Sorry. Seeing some of these guys out here, of course, I know cheering on their favorite drivers in chat, cheering on their favorite teams. Great to see you guys in here week in and week out. So someone asking if we're going to be doing even longer races. I mean, hey, who knows, guys? If we have enough demand for it, who knows how long of an endurance race that we might get going out here. Like I said, we got a lot of the iRacing special events, a lot of other series out here doing very long races. We'll just have to wait and see. That is all the information I can give as the drivers now are finally hitting the grids. Damon, great one last time. I'm going to go on record here saying I think it's going to be someone else from the middle of the pack. Someone that, Juan Blanot we saw had great pace as well. Josh Perween, as long as these guys keep it out of the walls, I think another person from the middle of the pack is going to end up winning this one as well.
I mean, that's a pretty fair assumption to make, of course, knowing that Gao Valero and Toby Soriano, the top 2 finishers of the last race, are now starting from the back of the pack. Definitely gives opportunities for the other drivers to really make an impact. Also considering the fact that no mandatory pit stops are needed this time around. This is a full sprint to the finish, 21 laps, half an hour. It is pretty much the last race of the night here for everybody involved. So a lot of these drivers didn't do so well in Heat 1. We'll be trying to see if they can do a little bit of a redemption drive here in Heat 2, as the safety car has now entered the pits and we are ready. Lights are going green and the cars are setting off. Immediately a couple of cars going off track. That is Simon De Mori, as well as I think that was Bruno De Carmo in the back there, going a little bit wide there. Coming into turn 1, looks like Alberto Senao is holding on to that lead just now, but David Ziwa or Jackson Resende not far behind him as well, and Alberto Senao pulling away really quickly.
And hopefully we'll see if Senao, like we've seen Jackson Resende as well. The track is still a little bit wet out here, so guys, keep that in mind. We have 3 drivers out here who chose to start this race on wet tires. We'll have to see how many people out here, they got to do a little bit of a warm-up, got to be out near the sky. Once again, it's still a little bit gray, still very overcast out here, so we'll have to see. Like we said, the rain may be coming down again. 30 minutes out here, so now Jackson Resende starting to pull away a little bit. Fabrizio Belziti, though, however, now making the move. So let's see, as about a 2.5 second gap between Senao in first and Belziti in second place. So right now, I think that's where everyone's about to be getting held up.
Yeah, but of course, looking at the back of the grid right now, we can see Toby Soriano unable to make any headway from his starting position. However, his closest competitor, Gao Valero, suddenly up 6 places into that P8 spot. So the cars in front, as I speak that now, Jackson Resende goes really wide there. Those wet tires probably not really doing him any favors if he's not on the dry line, which is very difficult to be on when you're surrounded by this much traffic and paying the price a little bit there. But going back to my original point, Gao Valero is back on his cars, trying to see if he can make his way back to the front of the pack and get back that money that he lost to Toby Soriano there.
And there we see a beautiful move right there from Bruno De Carmo going over Sardeni. So great move to the inside. I think right here now it's just dry enough to these guys aren't worried about it too much. But again, the strategy, although there is not a mandatory pit stop for heat number 2, the strategy will play in huge as the weather continues to change. Now, seeing the spray coming up off the track, are these guys in the wet tires going to be able to do that? We've seen Jackson Resende, Juan Blanot, Toby Soriano, the only 3 guys out there. As touching the grass like that is not going to help. So also, these guys, once we start seeing a little bit of a wet track out here, definitely going to be a lot more dangerous to be hitting that curb. And is now side by side the Donington Esports drivers. Bruno De Carmo able to hold it out in front. Gael Valero right behind him, as well as Jackson Resende. So the Donington Esports guys having a little bit better luck out here so far in heat number 2.
I'm just sort of like imagining you saying that, and then immediately something bad happens as the driver just went off. That was Josh Perwin into the runoff there, getting passed out, I believe. With that, we just completely lost grip and went into a 180 spin. However, it wasn't the Donington guys this time, so they've avoided it so far. Nico Vesvik here trying to play a little bit of defense, stopping David Ziwok and Jackson and Raf Benitez from making it past him. But regardless, tough one to call because God Valero now up to P6 made it past Bruno De Carmo, and this charge is not stopping anytime soon.
And so looking just like that, like we've seen Josh Perwin not having the best. Ooh, right there, 2 cars going in. It looks like that Ralph Benitez and David Givok right there getting a little bit dicey. So we'll have to see as right now he's got the incident from Josh Perwin, the picture-in-picture replay down there in the bottom right-hand corner. Josh Perwin again just touching that curbing and getting completely loose, almost taking out Simon Demori with him. Yeah, man, that's super dangerous out there. So I think that's one thing that a lot of these guys, hey, you still want to be, that's on the fastest line, but just how hard you hit the brakes. If you're on that wet curbing, you're going to get sent flying off the track, just like we've seen happen there. So Josh Perwin not having the best of days out here, but we'll have to see if he's able to come back. Like we said, folks, 30 minutes out here to see what these drivers can do in heat number 2.
Yeah, and even though the track is slightly drier than it was in heat 1, there is still a definite dry and wet line, and you want to be staying on a dry line at all times, otherwise you just going to end up losing the grip, and it doesn't really matter what kind of tires you're on, you're just going to end up messing up as God Valero gets forced out of that corner a little bit early there, completely missed the apex, slowed him down considerably. Will he try to make it past Bruno De Carmo yet again? They are competing for this position. Back again, they still have about 17 laps left in the race, so not too worried is God Valero. He has a lot of time to get and make his way back up the pack, and we'll still have to see whether or not the track actually dries up before they reach the end. The track is getting a little bit warmer than it was last week, but not really doing the track wetness any favors.
And so trying to get a look now, kind of seen a little bit, so it does look like forecast is calling for rain again out here, so can confirm. Like we said, someone said a little birdie out there kind of being the weatherman, so we'll have to see. Is right now though, ooh, side by side, still great moves as we see right there. Gael Valero trying to take advantage of that right over the number 13 of Bruno De Carmo. So we got a great side-by-side battle going on. Of course, these two last season battling it out for points, first and second place. We'll have to see as now these guys continue to battle it all the time. So, ooh, and there's a crash back there that looks like Pedro Dean got involved in that incident. We could definitely gonna have to catch a replay of what happened there. Man, just see at the last second, cars getting flown off the track. So we'll have to catch a replay of that, see exactly how that unfolded. But right now, the other driver's taking advantage of it. Gael Valero now in 7th place. David Givok in 6th. Sardeni 8th. Peter Zuba 9th. So, man, a lot going on out there. Bruno De Carmo all the way up into 5th place right now.
In a strange case of coincidence, the corner that Pedro Dean went off was the exact same corner that Josh Perwin also went off. As we can see the picture-in-picture replay here. What happened to Pedro Dean? Oh my god, it's exactly the same thing that happened to Josh. Put a couple of wheels on the wet curb, immediately just lost all grip in his right side, ended up 180 into the runoff. Exact same as Josh Perwin did. I mean, fool me once, shame on me. Fool me twice. Come on, man.
Yeah, so just like that, people finding out the hard way with these curbs out here, getting a little bit too wet. And here we go now. Great side-by-side. David Givok, Gael Valero trying to make the move to the outside. Doesn't quite have the pace on him now. We'll have to see as they're going to this right-hander. Looking to the inside still. Trying to get up on the rear quarter panel now. Right now, door to door. Gael Valero having the better exit out of that corner. A little bit more speed. And here, hard on the brakes. Trying to get it back in line, trying to not go too much. Right there's a dangerous place to go too wide. So great shot, but right behind him as well, Peter Zuba now making it 3 wide. So Peter Zuba backing off. He knows that's way too dangerous. No! Right there, Gael Valero getting taken out. Oh, Gael Valero trying to go onto the outside. Not going to be too happy about that one.
Yeah, and to make matters worse, the rain has returned, and those drivers on the dry tires definitely going to be feeling the burn. Remember, there are no mandatory pit stops required for this heat, but considering the circumstances, it is more than likely that they will need to take one regardless.
So out here, and it's looking like it's going to be raining once again for a while. So at this point, it's going to really see if the guys that took the wets from the beginning of the race, if now, did they have too much tire wear before it started raining, or is it going to be perfect right now? Definitely a lot of these guys, like we said, there are no mandatory pit stops in this sprint race, but these guys might be having to switch it out for wets here pretty soon, as well as not sure how much fuel they have out here for this race, if that's going to come into play as well. But right now, we're seeing Ralph Benitez doing a great job. Right behind him, his teammate Bruno de Carmo. So the two Brazilians from Team Delinte Esports showing and putting the pressure on Nico Wierzbicki. Of course, Nico Wierzbicki doing pretty good last heat early on. And like you said, with most of the drivers, the pit stops and the incidents is what really changed the pace.
Yeah, and I'm starting to wonder whether or not the length of the first heat will play an effect on how these drivers will be able to maintain their focus going into this next heat, as Ralph Benitez really putting the pressure on Nico there. Had to let off just a little bit to avoid any form of extreme contact. But as I say that, he immediately shut Nico Wierzbicki. He is stuck in no man's land right now, unable to really flip his car back around, and he's just a moving obstacle for everyone else. Nearly takes out Valero yet again.
Man, and just like that, that is one of the worst places that you can spin out. Like I said, right in the middle of the track, going around a hairpin. So, of course, you can see he wasn't sure, do I go forward, do I go back? I mean, of course, you want to hold the brakes, not try to cause any more incidents, but same place right before the pit. So he ends up going in there, getting whatever damage that he may have gotten from there, as well as, on those wet tires. So, again, we'll just have to see. That one just got hit from the rear just a little bit too hard, and right now that's left Ralph Benitez and Bruno de Carmo to move up a place. So right now, lap number 7, your leaders are Fabrizio Balziti in first, Alberto Senao in second, and Ralph Benitez in third.
Yeah, as you're saying, your theory might be coming to pass right now. It's mostly the guys in the mid-pack that are probably going to end up coming out on top here. A bunch of drivers from the front early on in Heat 1 didn't really have the best performances. Now on a bit of a redemption drive here. We have the likes of Belziti, Alberto Senao, Bruno de Carmo, David Zewalk. Not really part of that gang, but he did end up bowing out a bit early during the last heat. So on a recovery drive of his own, as well as Nico Wierzbicki is now... that's Peter Zuba's car actually chasing down Simon De Mori in P5. So we're still looking for whether or not this battle will be taking off. Less than half a second separating them, and the slipstream really does not matter as much in the wet, as we get into a replay of what happened earlier. Here is Nico Wierzbicki. Ralph Benitez was backing off a little bit to try and avoid hard contact with him, but immediately after I said that, he just shunts the back of Nico Wierzbicki. Nico Wierzbicki, he was trying to stop himself from getting into the runoff area, but as he tries to rejoin the track, there are cars just coming at him non-stop. He can't go forward, he can't go backward, because as he tries to go backward, he ends up trying to hit, almost hitting another car that was moving into him, and a little bit of netcode there, but he did take out Valero's front bumper, and immediately as he rejoins the track, you can see how much he's spinning the wheels. That's how difficult the wet weather is making this for the drivers.
So after that incident, I mean, we might just have to see whether or not a couple of those drivers that kind of got taken out try to avoid him that he ended up going into. Not sure if those guys might have some words about that, but definitely the racing stewards, again, might possibly have something to say about that as well. Of course, it's typically you just want to hold onto your brakes until you do get a clear line of sight. Of course, he wasn't quite as clear, and that's where it really helps whenever you have a spotter on you, being able to tell you, hey, when your traffic is clear, of course, you want to get out there as soon as possible, but that's not always the case. So here we go, as now getting into lap number 9, we see Peter Zuba now going into the pits as well. In front of him, we have the number 13 of Bruno de Carmo, Alberto Senao. So quite a few more drivers now finally hitting the pits, trying to get on those wet tires. And we'll see where these guys out there. Fabrizio Balziti, Benitez, De Mori, and Valero still all out there on the dry tires. Your top 4 drivers waiting to try and go at least one more lap on them before they have to pit.
Yeah, and I think in Valero's case especially, he definitely wants to try and see if he can make up time by staying out on track a little bit longer. He wants to eke out the gap as much as possible so that when he goes into the pits, he doesn't end up losing any more positions because he was in a really bad spot before that. And meanwhile, Fabrizio Belziti is 11 seconds clear of Ralph Benitez here up front, but he's going to have to go into the pits relatively soon. Meanwhile, Alberto Senao here was in the lead earlier on, but did pit in for the wet tires, which means that as long as he maintains his pace, he will still be able to stay in front of the rest of the pack. Toby Soriano as well, major drive from him. Running from the back of the pack is now up to P6. Jackson Resende there doesn't look like he's returning back to the track after entering the pits. He looks like he's out. Meanwhile, Nico Besbicki at the back there, the victim of an unfortunate shunt by Ralph Benitez, is still reeling from the impact and on a bit of a recovery drive here.
So just like that, oh, another spin right there. Alberto Senao getting spun around, a complete 180 now. Trying to see, he has plenty of room to get right back into it, leaving room for Juan Blanat to overtake. And right here we can see Bruno De Carmo creeping up on him. We'll see if they have the pace. They're trying not to get into any more incidents out here. But just like that, we see a few guys. I know Gael Valero looking like he got that front bumper back on as well, sitting there in the pits. So these guys, definitely things are getting a bit dicey. And here is heat number 1 winner, Toby Soriano now. We'll see how many positions he's about to gain. It looks like he'll get all the way up into second place. Fabrizio Balziti still holding on to first place. But like we've seen, if Toby Soriano able to do what he did in heat number 1, he may be looking to put the pressure on Fabrizio Balziti very soon, over a 6-second gap. So he definitely has the work cut out for him.
Yeah, and now Valero entering the pits down to P9. Unfortunate spot for him because he stayed in the pits for quite a while there, trying to get a bit of damage repair as well. Toby Soriano back up onto the podium in P2. Just has to catch up to Fabrizio Balziti. He has 11 laps to make up 6 seconds. And here's the incident replay between Alberto Senao and Toby Soriano, that Alberto Senao just going in way too hard on the exit. Toby Soriano wasn't as fast and tapped the back of him, but he ends up paying the price for it, losing control of his car and then ending up facing the wrong way. So he is currently competing with Bruno De Carmo, wants to make sure he doesn't lose any more positions, but you all have to know Bruno De Carmo is the type of driver that will definitely put the pressure on you.
And speaking back there, looks like the strategy to come out in the wets has definitely paid off, because Toby Soriano and Juan Blanat out here, 0 pit counts, so neither of them have hit the pits, and they were 2 of the drivers that started out here on started out the race on wet tires. So that strategy may very well be coming to play. Of course, Jackson Asenji, one of the other drivers that was out here since the very beginning on the wet tires, unfortunately looking like he is out of this race. So for these other guys, though, as now, ooh, that's a very risky move going to the inside there. Bruno De Carmo slotting it right in. Man, that is great right there. Alberto Senao, Bruno De Carmo, but door to door, side by side. So that's very dangerous out here as the track is still pretty wet out. But it just shows if these guys are still on dry tires, they would be out in an incident. So now getting very close, trying to really pinch him to the inside, but Bruno De Carmo coming out on top into 5th place.
Yeah, and even then, pulling alongside side by side like that is very, very dangerous on a wet track, because at some point in time, one of you is not going to be on that dry line, which means that one of you won't have the grip to really make any move stick. So that it could have ended up being very, very bad for both of them, but racecraft very solid from both of these drivers, managing to keep it together. And Alberto Senao losing the position of Bruno De Carmo. Simon De Mori is now behind him, looking for an opportunity to make his move and get one position as well. Meanwhile, Gael Valero behind there, still trying to make up the pace there. Today doesn't feel like his day, despite a very strong P2 finish. Looks like he won't be able to replicate it this time around. We've got about 10 laps left, and immediately this race feels like it's going by miles faster than P1 did.
Yeah, I mean, these drivers knew they only had 30 minutes to get things done. So with a third of the time, they knew, all right, we're definitely going to have to be in here, be aggressive right out of the bat. For some drivers, that's absolutely paid off, and for others, unfortunately, has sent them off track. So really great right now. The Argentinian 1, 2, 3, Valzidi, Soriano, Blenat, your top three going into lap number 12, followed by a couple Brazilian drivers of Delinte Esports, so Ralph Benitez, Bruno de Carmo, and here Alberto Senal, Simon Demori. So all the way through our top six, we have some pretty great battles going on right now. Bruno de Carmo and Senal, as well as Simon Demori. I think that's where it's going to be, as Balzidi doing a great job already, nearly 10 seconds in the lead. So I think right now if Balzidi is able to keep that, he will hold on to this one. But right now, back in the middle of the pack, Senal trying to fight off Simon Demori, peeking to the outside, just trying to find any bit of room. Of course, like we said, the track is only getting track's only going to be getting even more wet. The sky is still gray. Those clouds are getting pretty dark. It's about to come pouring down in buckets here pretty soon.
Yeah, gotta love that UK summer weather. Rains 80% of the season, and definitely showing it in full force here. But some of these drivers came absolutely prepared. Of course, talking about the drivers in front, Toby Soriano, Juan Blenat, and Belziti, all Argentinian, all of them ready to face anything that's thrown against them. Toby Soriano does have to make up a 10-second gap in 9 laps, while Belziti does not have to pit. So, you know, it could be a really tall ask for them, and Belziti might just have this in the bag if he can keep it consistent all the way to the end. Meanwhile, the battle for the mid-pack here, Bruno de Carmo, Alberto Senao, and Simon Demori still a bit locked in this battle here. Bruno de Carmo is pretty comfortable. He's the second clear of Alberto Senao, but Senao cannot breathe for even a minute as Simon Demori is chasing him down. And even so, behind Simon Demori is Perezuba, also about 0.7 of a second behind.
And so right here too, the battle, I think right now during the middle of the pack, man, this is where things are really going to be doing. But Ralph Benitez getting super close to that third place position. So we know he wants to get one on the board for Brazil, split up the Argentinian 1, 2, 3. So we see Ralph Benitez, who also got to see this weekend, like I said, a lot of these drivers out here participating in other classes, participating in a lot of series. So it's great to see what these guys can do all around. Of course, whether they're in a high downforce car, whether they're out here in a GT3, seeing some of these guys in the TCRs, no matter what, it's great to see some of these guys being very, very consistent. Of course, Juan Blenat being one of those drivers. Now, see, you know, these incidents, man, I think that's really what is going to be killing these drivers for the most part, more than anything else out here on track today, especially as now the rain really coming down hard, and Juan Blenat completely missing his braking point, going through that marker. He's absolutely going to get a slowdown for that one.
Yeah, really unfortunate, and pretty apt timing for you to talk about just little mistakes that these drivers end up in, unforced errors that put them in really compromising positions. That's really what gets a lot of these drivers, despite the fact that we know they've got really good pace, they've got really good racecraft. It's just a little bit of consistency needs to be there. We can know drivers like Gao Valero, the reason why he's a back-to-back champion is because at every race he competes in, he always puts up an astonishingly great, but also consistent performance, and that's kind of what really makes a great AMX driver here. Not to discredit any of the other drivers. On a good day, these are absolutely blisteringly quick guys, but you know, at some point in time, especially since we just had a really long 90-minute race, really it's that focus that you have to maintain in order to really pick it up a notch.
And looking at that, so Juan Blenat does have some damage to the front of his vehicle, so that's absolutely going to slow him down just a little bit out here in the rain. So Ralph Benitez absolutely putting the pressure on him. So we'll have to see as he has Bruno de Carmo about a couple seconds behind him as well. So if these two start battling it out, Bruno de Carmo might get involved in the mix of this thing right here. Toby Soriano now only 3 seconds up over those guys, and Fabrizio Belziti is still making that gap even larger. So right here we can see from Juan Blenat, I seen someone making a comment right there about that shortcut being new. One thing to keep in mind that is new now with the new season in iRacing is a lot of these guys, I'll get back to that, ooh, a beautiful move right there. So Ralph Benitez finally making the move over Juan Blenat. Will Juan Blenat be able to get him on switchback? He does not get it. So now into the next left-hander, this last hairpin going into the final corner. Ralph Benitez just showing great pace so far. So I think he definitely might have this on team. Next time we'll see Bruno de Carmo, his teammate, might be the next one having to battle out Juan Blenat. But one thing I was saying earlier, keep in mind, Currently, iRacing for the new season has implemented a new system for slowdown. So if you cut the corner like we seen Juan Blanot do earlier, before you would have to really slow down in order to get that time settled, that way you don't get a black flag. But with this one, in the rain, it makes it a little bit easier to be going slower, especially you can defend a little bit harder. So it's going to definitely make it a little bit more difficult for some of these people. If someone in front of you gets to slow down, there's a very good chance that they're going to stay holding on to their position.
Yeah, that's an interesting topic to bring up as well. As you can see, a lot of these drivers definitely still fighting for control of their car in this ever worsening weather here. Rainstorm seems to be dropping down harder than it ever did in Heat 1, and with about 6 laps remaining left in the race. 6 laps? Oh my god, time is really passing by really quickly. I didn't even notice.
Man, just like that. I mean, especially coming out how action-packed. I mean, a lot of people said, man, the last 90-minute race flew by super quick. So, yeah, this one definitely going by just as fast. Which I love it, though, at some point. That's how you know when it's good racing. Whenever you can have longer races go by that quick, you know these guys are putting on a show. And definitely one of the best showing. I think I'm really excited to see what the rest of this season brings for AMX 15. I know my favorite out here on track, we're going to be out in the V8 Supercars about halfway through. V8 Supercars out at Bathurst, and if it rains at all for that, man, that is going to be absolute chaos. So everyone, you know, make sure to check out the full schedule. Make sure to mark your calendars. Follow us on Twitch and YouTube. Turn on that little notification for when we go live. As well as you can head out to our AMX Discord, a whole bunch of other stuff to know what we got going on throughout the season. This season, we've had a lot of back and forth with some of the things. We said AMX 10 now, our TCR World Tour going on. We've had a lot of conversation about that, as well as now our endurance races. So a lot of changes this season, a lot of things that go back and forth. We got to hear from a few drivers, of course, everyone kind of giving their feedback. And although we're at very first couple weeks of the new season, we're always looking forward. So if you guys ever have any suggestions of what you'd love to see out here, both from the drivers and from the viewers, we'd love to hear it. But right now, back here, see people saying, go Bruno, let's see if he can get the move over Juan Blanot.
Yeah, and good point as well. And any of you guys in the chat, if you want to take part in AMX 0, AMX 5, AMX 10, AMX 15, feel free. You can join over the Discord, join over the discussion, talk to some of our drivers, even sign up the race at amxrace.com. As meanwhile, Bruno DeCarmo tries to make a move on the Juan Blanot, and Juan Blanot has to take the white line through because of Bruno DeCarmo taking the inside and immediately making that pass happen. Juan Blanot was kind of caught unawares there, couldn't really find the grip to defend for that corner. He was going to try and make the switch back there, but Bruno DeCarmo doing a good job at holding the line. I see that right now, but they're pulling alongside, almost side by side. Bruno DeCarmo does have the better exit off of that into the weak cross straight. And holding on to that lead for the time being, the two Delinte guys from Brazil are now P3 and P4, just behind the other two Argentinians of Toby Soriano and Velocity.
So now Bruno DeCarmo and Ralph Benitez, both of them trying to get Delinte Esports on the podium out here. So far looking like they are very much going to do that as long as they can keep it on track. So like I said, with only a few laps left in this one, things are going by. Belziti also being able to just do an amazing job out in the wet weather. On the last race out in heat number 1, Belziti all the way down to 12th place. So, of course, like we said, strategy for that 90-minute race out here with the sprint is just, hey, man, pedal down, focus forward, and do what we can do. But, again, Toby Soriano, Ralph Benitez, these guys, seeing what they can do. Unfortunately, Juan Blanot, he was up towards the front of the pack earlier, but I think that damage is really just having to do it, especially on a track like this where you really have to get a lot of those high speeds, kind of get things flowing quite a bit. Only a couple really technical turns on these last couple of turns, got a couple of hairpins going in, but the rest of the track, it's definitely pretty high speed. So let's see, hopefully Juan Blanot, he's trying to make it back onto the podium, but he has a couple guys right behind him, Sanao and Simon Demori, Ederzuba as well, so 3 guys also capable of making up plenty of time over that. So right now, we'll have to see as Simon Demori only have a second behind Alberto Sanao. We got to see these guys battle it out in the last heat. Hopefully, both of them can keep their cars straight forward. We know it's been a bit of an unlucky day for some of these drivers as well.
Yeah, and some of these drivers are keeping their head down. Like Gal Valero really hasn't made any headway since he made that jump up to P9. So far, he's keeping it pretty nice and tidy. Meanwhile, Ralph Benitez has caught up to Toby Soriano, and he is now looking for that P2 spot. Toby Soriano, the last heat winner, is facing a serious amount of pressure here from the Hurricane of Ralph Benitez. At this point in time, with 3 laps remaining, it seems unlikely that he'll be able to keep up with Belziti. Of course, not needing the pit does give him the immense time advantage, as well as his pace in the wet actually being surprisingly really good. And meanwhile, here comes Alberto Senao pulling alongside Simon Demori. He's on the outside of that track. That means he doesn't have the best exit out of the corner. Simon Demori just gets the run back out, and immediately the gap widens yet again. So Alberto Senao is going to have to look for other opportunities to make it happen. Maybe at this hair, maybe the S is here. Doesn't look like it. There is only one line through, and Simon Demori reached there first, but it is still too early to call. Currently 7/10 of a second behind Simon Demori. He's still waiting for an opportunity. He just has to make sure Simon Demori ends up making a mistake that he can capitalize on. But he is not out of the woods himself. Peter Zuba right behind him in another Hurricane, also looking for an opportunity to make it past him as well. So with around 2 laps left in this heat, it is really starting to kick off.
That's right, here we always know the last lap. So I think right now Fabrizio Belziti pretty much has this one in the bag. Of course, just not having to do it. It's all smiles there. Toby Soriano now getting into a great battle between him and Ralph Benitez. These are probably going to be the 2 guys we're going to have to look out as Soriano. Benitez, man, super quick through there. The rain still coming down. The beautiful glow from the sunset in the background. Man, this is what a picturesque. I can't wait to see some of the photos that these drivers post at from this one. But definitely Toby Soriano, of course, one of the drivers that has not had to pit out here, been on the wets the entire time. But Ralph Benitez just showing great pace out here. Did hit a pit stop. Gael Valero now not having the best. We've seen his bumper get cut off early on in the race. Had to pit, had to get some damage repaired, put him back down. Alberto Senao now still also trying to get back that place, battling it out with Simon Demori as well as Peter Zuba. So these 3 drivers in the middle of the pack, these guys doing a great job out here. Some of them trying to redeem themselves from heat number 1, some of them getting slided back down a little bit more, but that is what we love to see out here. And ooh, a little bit of contact right there, getting a little bit of push. Simon Demori still doing a great job of defending off Senao.
Yeah, and this 3-car battle is soon to be a 4-car battle. Penultimate lap. Now Belziti has to cross the line, but now Valero wanting to see if he can make back up for lost time here. Immediately making this a 4-car battle. There are 2 rows of 2-car wides going into the next hairpin here, into Goddard, coming out into the Wheatcroft straight, and it looks like Simon Demori is running away with a fantastic exit there, but Peter Zuba and Alberto Senao drag racing through the first corner. Valero just tailing behind him. He is caught in that spray. Visibility is at an all-time low for him, but he's keeping it nice and cool, and we'll have to see an ultimate lap, of course, second to last. See if Valero can actually make it through these 3 cars as he looks to find a line on the outside. Doesn't want to stray off the dry line a bit too much, although considering the weather, can you really say there is a dry line right now? The battle for P2 as well, the picture-in-picture is Ralph Benitez still hounding Toby Soriano. That Toby Soriano just has to hold it together for 1 more lap, and he'll be walking home with, I believe, might be the overall win there.
Yeah, great jobs from both of these packs right here. I mean, things got pretty dangerous when I seen 2x2 from those drivers out there in the middle of the pack. Man, I thought one of them was going to crash out during that. Getting very dicey, but still holding it together. Some of the best drivers out here in the wet from what we've seen today, as well as now seeing P2. These guys are getting dangerously close, about half a second, but it's still even closer. Alberto Senao, less than 2/10 of a second. Peter Zuba, another 2/10. So I think right now, Simon Demori doing what he can to hold him off as we enter very close, just a few moments away from getting the white flag with these guys. So here we are, guys, lap 21 of 21. The white flag is flying, and these guys are out on the final lap. I can see there, P2 trying to get it. Fabrizio Belziti looks like he's going to have this one in the bag. He has 1 more lap to keep it clean. Soriano trying to hold out Benitez, and here the main battle in the middle of the pack. These guys, a 4-way battle, been holding it off. order has changed. Simon Demori leading that so far, doing a great job for all these. You can see the focus and all of them, all smiles from some of these guys. I think more than anything here we see is Pedro Zuba now trying to send it up the inside. Gael Valero once again is missing his bumper. Man, that is twice in this race that Gael has lost his front bumper. So we'll have to see what happens from here on out. But now Simon Demori, Alberto Senao side by side. Who's going to make it in here? Ooh, contact from the two of them. Senao goes off track into the gravel. Simon Demori leading away, but Pedro Zuba is right behind him, as well as Gael Valero getting back into this fight.
Oh, really unfortunate. The last lap, Alberto Senao and Simon Demori get into a little bit of an altercation, and Alberto Senao was the unfortunate victim of that. Pedro Zuba, however, capitalizing on that, pulling alongside Simon Demori as they're entering the next corner. In fact, Simon having to let go of throttle, letting Gael Valero through as well. And now he's down 2 positions. Gael Valero up to P7, Pedro Zuba up to P6. But upper, closer to the front. Of course, the battle for P1. Ralph Benitez actually made it past Tommy Soriano, but Tommy Soriano claws it back as they're about to cross the finish line in just about 20 seconds. Meanwhile, Belziti and Fabrizio Belziti, our Heat 2 winner, crossing the finish line. We'll have to wait and see whether or not Tommy Soriano can claw back that lead from Ralph Benitez. They're entering the final corner here. The car was right behind them. Tommy Soriano, final lap, final corner, final straightaway, pulling away from the Delinte boys and getting that P2 position, solidifying his position as pretty much the biggest winner out of all of it here. Meanwhile, Gael Valero is going to make it past Ron Sadeni for that P7. It looks like he crossed the line first. Yes, he does. Perezuba in P6. Sadeni almost got that position away from him, was unable to get it in the end. Alberto Senao going to have to settle for P9. David Zewalk in P10. Pedro Dean crossing the line P11. Got 3 more drivers left. Demond Demori actually ended up off the track as well. Josh Merwin P12, which means that he and Nico Vesvicki will be rounding up the final 14, crossing the line here.
Man, so just like that, a turn of events all the way down to the checkered flag. I was looking out there too, looking like Gael Valero having nearly a drag race on his hands. Just about 0.05 of a second between Gael and Sardeni. Man, things are great as we see right here. Here's Bisky getting a little bit sideways, celebrating once again. So these guys having an absolute great time. So we knew it was going to be good for our 90-minute race. Things were pretty close all the way down to the last lap, and of course here in the sprint race as well. So that just goes to show, you put these guys in a long race, it's going to be good. You put them in a sprint, it's going to be equally just as much of a battle. And we're seeing some of these great drifts out here. So Nico Wierzbicki having a little bit of fun. These drivers, we're definitely going to have to catch up with a couple of them now here in a few moments to really see what happened. But I mean, seeing where Toby Soriano kind of finished there, we'll have to, of course, get the official results. But it does look like he might be very close to being, if not, being the overall winner for today's races. Of course, he won that heat number 2. So with that amount of points, like we said, triple the points for heat number 2. That may really be what it is that sets him apart from the rest. But here we go. Fabrizio Balziti, your BenQ session winner for heat number 2 out here, AMX 15. Great congratulations to him. Second place, Toby Soriano, who we saw a great battle between him and Ralph Benitez. Bruno De Carmo in 4th, Juan Blanat in 5th, Peter Zuba 6th, Gael Valero 7th, Gerard Sardeni in 8th place. 9th goes to Alberto Senao. 10th, David Givok. 11th, Pedro Dean. In 12th place, we got Josh Perween. 13th, Nikodem Wierzbicki. 14th, Simon Demori. 15th, Jackson Asenje. So, man, just absolutely crazy times out here once again from these guys. Of course, Fabrizio Balziti got the lead early on in the race and simply walked away, as well as setting the fastest lap. So we're going to have to keep an eye out for Balziti in the future. Definitely one driver going to have to keep an eye out for in the rain. But Damon, man, I mean, what was your highlight of this race? I mean, there's so many things to choose from, but I'd say if you had to narrow it down to one thing, what was the highlight from both Heat 1 and Heat 2?
Oh, really hard to talk about that right now. I mean, we just came off the backs of an amazing Heat 1, especially that final chase near the end where Gael Valero just barely couldn't make it past Toby Soriano at the very end. But I think the clincher for me would probably be that final lap battle of Heat 2. I mean, memorable 4-car battle for P5, and then another 2-car battle for P2. two battles happening simultaneously. What's not to like?
Yeah, and I think for me, I mean, it really comes down to the checkered flag right there at the end of Heat 2. Also, just, I mean, seeing those guys, the move right there, Toby Soriano, almost losing it to two Delinta Esports guys. That would have been an absolute heartbreaker around the final turn to be battling it out just to lose that position. But we're going to be going up, hearing from one of our race winners to see exactly what happened through here. I mean, there's so much to cover, but we're going to head it over into the interview room and talk to the drivers. So we're out here. Toby Soriano, of course. First, I'm going to say congratulations on that win as well, getting back on the podium in heat number 2. Man, things definitely got heated up. First of all, one thing that we're all wondering, Matt, what was going through your mind the last couple of turns here in heat number 2?
Well, thank you, Kevin. Hi, everyone. To be honest, a lot of suffer the last lap because I was out of fuel. I have to leave in all the corners, I think. Just in one corner I didn't leave because otherwise I won't win. So it's that, a lot of suffer.
Awesome, and coming out here, of course, once the rain started coming down, that changed things for everyone. What would you say would be your strategy that led to your victory in heat number 1?
Well, I love the rain, so I knew that I'm gonna win that race. To be honest, with Gael, we fight a little amount of laps. So when he make a mistake, I know that I'm not gonna lose this race. You know, there is no chance that I'm gonna lose. So I keep focused, and with the strategy, it was the fuel. I parked the fuel in 2, so it gave me a lot of seconds in box. So that's the key to me.
Awesome. And moving forward, of course, you know, we were in the GT3s today. Is there one car that you're really looking forward to out here for an endurance race this season?
The F1. I want to race with the F1, of course.
All right, well, we'll have to take that. Once again, big congratulations for your win out here today. A great way to start off the season for AMX15, and we wish you the best of luck in your future races.
Thank you, Kevin. Thank you, AMX. Thank you, Whooper, and thank you, Patagonia. See you guys.
And now we're joined with Josh Perwin. Josh, an intense battle out there today. I mean, definitely things were really shaken up today. Maybe not the best once the rain came in. Just for perspective, how difficult was it to be raining out here on this track?
It was such a challenge, and I think the rain was, I forgot to check the radar, so it was a little bit unexpected as well. So it was a really good challenge, and I think it was a bit of an equalizer as well, because I think in the dry, everyone was quite similar pace, whereas the rain kind of allowed for people to try various things in both races, actually, trying to find the right lap to pit and everything. So I think it was quite fun. I'm glad the rain came.
Awesome. I mean, we've seen... you made the replays a couple of times, and we got to see a couple of spin outs, but I mean, great job on being able to get back on the track. I mean, whenever you hit the rain and that happens, from the point of a driver, just what goes through your head? What goes through your head once you start seeing that, oh no, I'm spinning out? What do you do next?
Oh, I think as soon as you spin out, the aim is to get back on track as soon as you can, but I think the challenge for me, especially this race, or the first one, was the incident points, because I think in the first couple laps there was a bit of argy-bargy, so I ended up just going over and I had to do a drive-through in the first race. So yeah, the wet definitely produced a little bit of a challenge. It's quite tough to overtake in the wet as well, so when you get stuck behind the driver, you've kind of got to just hope that they make a mistake in order to let them get past them. But otherwise, no, it was yeah, the wet is always good, always challenging. So yeah, I'm glad that it rained.
I don't know out there. So being mandatory 2 pit stops, that differs from last season where we only had 1 mandatory pit stop. What was your strategy going into heat number 1 knowing that?
Well, as soon as I saw the rain, I was just hoping that I could get through the first stint and then just check on the wet tires, which ended up happening. And then the second stint, I was hoping it would dry out in time, but I think I switched to the dryers a little bit late. I didn't realize that a couple of other people had already gone to the dryers until I saw, I think, Gael Valera going like 3 seconds faster than me already. So I think the weather conditions kind of changed the strategy a little bit. But the other thing that people could have done, which helped, was it's about 54 liters to fill up the tank in a car. So in the first stint, I ended up putting in 70, whereas I should have done 50 and 50 rather than 70 and 30, because I lost about 5 or 10 seconds by doing that as well.
Awesome. Well, it's great to hear from you, and good luck next in the future races. I mean, we're at the very beginning of the season so far. It's been a crazy start. So we hope to see you in the next ones, and good luck with those ones, Josh.
Thank you.
So there we got to hear it from a couple of the drivers themselves. I think, like we said, the biggest factor out here, of course, the rain is always the great equalizer. No matter how good of a driver, if you're not prepared, especially with these endurance races being such a mental game, that I think is what played the biggest role in some of these today. But Damon, I mean, I'm glad days like this today. I mean, I wish I had, iRating over 4,000 to get up here and battle it out with these guys. But at the same time, I see how crazy the chaos was, and I'm just glad to be in the booth. But I mean, we'll have to see. As now, I think we're waiting on the official results to come in. We had Toby Soriano, which we seen heat number 2 absolutely blazing, and of course that did it in for the win. So here you go, folks. Your AMX15 inaugural winner, Toby Soriano, coming in first place, followed by Gael Valero in second, Juan Blanat in third place. Your top 3 doing an absolute great job. Peter Zuba coming in 4th place with 69 points. Nice. 5th place, we have Bruno DeCarmo. 6th, Pedro Dean. 7th, Fabrizio Belziti. 8th place, Ralph Benitez. 9th, Simon Demori. And rounding out in 10th, Josh Perween. So a great start. We know these drivers are only going to be pushing themselves even harder as the rest of the season continues. And we'll have to see if Toby Soriano or Gael Valero, both of them really wanting to get that championship once again out here, especially with AMX 15 being all new. It might be too early to tell, but Damon, do you have any predictions of what we might be seeing for the championship?
I mean, I've seen the schedule for AMX Season 6 this time around, and definitely going to be some interesting car and track combinations that we haven't seen before, but for the sake of everybody at home, going to keep the schedule a secret. If you really want to know, you can check out the website at amxrace.com, but if you want us to not spoil the surprise, we got you covered.
And speaking of that, so everyone follow all of our social medias, as well as head over to the amxrace.com, like Damon said. Get the full schedule, get signed up. We'd love to have you out here next weekend for AMX 0. Like we mentioned already during the race, we're going to be back in the USA, heading it out in the Formula Vs over to Lime Rock Park, as well as the Porsche Cup cars at Road Atlanta. So 2 great races, as well as we're going to be heading back over to Italy next Sunday for our AMX 10 race, where definitely things gotten a bit argy-bargy in the last one. These drivers definitely have words to say about what happened there in the last one. So a bunch of great races. Follow us on Twitch and YouTube. Catch all of the replays. Catch us live. But signing out from AMX, we will see you all next time.